Tampa City Council now come to order. Good morning, colleagues and citizens of Tampa. Tampa City Council regular City Council meeting, July 15, 2021. One will now begin. Thank you, Mr. Carlson. You have the invocation this morning, sir.
Great, thank you. I'm proud to introduce this morning a longtime friend, Jess Johnson. He's a native Floridian of Cuban descent. He and his wife, Katie, met in school at the University of Florida and moved together to Tampa in 2007. They have a 10-year-old son, Jake, and an 8-year-old daughter, Elizabeth. Jess is a commercial real estate consultant with Seville's, where he leads an international team based in New York, LA, London, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And his family is active at the church that I go to, Hyde Park United Methodist, where he and his wife have served in children, youth, music, hospitality ministries for more than 10 years. I've seen Jess involved in lots of things in the community and want to thank him publicly for that. But also, he is if you're not a pastor, they call you a lay person, and he is regularly the lay person who gives prayers at our church, and he does a great job of it. So I wanted to make sure that the people of Tampa got to hear him this morning. So if everyone will rise, and he'll do the invocation, then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman. I'm not clergy or a theologian, and I feel wholly inadequate to invoking our Lord over these important proceedings today. But my Christian faith teaches me that God's plan for saving the world is in the daily response of ordinary, faithful people who hear his call and act with purpose. So it's in that spirit that I'll read from a hymn that articulates that call. Will you come and follow me if I but call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same? Will you let my love be shown? Will you let my name be known? Will you let my life be grown in you, and you in me? Will you let the blinded see, if I but call your name? Will you set the prisoners free, and never be the same? Will you kiss the leper clean, and do things such as this unseen, and admit to what I mean in you, and you in me? Will you love the you hide, if I but call your name? Will you quell the fear inside and never be the same? Will you use the faith you've found to reshape the world around through my sight and touch and sound in you and you in me? There's a final verse to this hymn that I will not read because it's the response to this call. So, Father, my prayer, my humble invocation, is that each of us hears this summons in our own hearts today and responds to you, and that we're never the same. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic, which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, Jess. Deputy Clerk, roll call, please.
Carlson.
Here.
Maniscalco. Here. Dingfelder. Citro.
Here.
Vieira.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
And Goods.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Shelby.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Members of City Council, Martin Shelby, the City Council Attorney. Today is the 15th of July, and we're here at Old City Hall, and we're here to conduct business pursuant to your rules of procedure with amendments that I would like to ask council to vote to waive the rules to make them consistent with that which is in the notice that was posted and provided and is present in the agenda. So at this point in time, per council's direction at the last meeting, I'm going to ask council to waive the rules to be consistent with the notice.
Motion to waive the rule.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Vera, you recognize.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. I have a motion for a resolution which council has gotten a receipt of. I ask if I may, because there's people who are going to be watching this.
Ms.
just so
Vera,
that-
one moment, sir. The roll was just being taken for the vote. The
Oh,
clerk has not made the
apologize.
decision on the vote, and we'll come back to that, sir, once we get to the approval of the
Pardon
agenda.
me, sir.
Madam Clerk.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder. Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. Vieira,
Yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dean Felder being absent.
Ms. Shelby, at this point, you want to read the guidelines for the communications?
No, sir, it's really not necessary. The waiving of the rules, make it consistent with what is now posted in the agenda, and it is also the notice that was posted.
Members of public comment, sir.
Oh, with regard to public comment,
Yes, sir.
it's continuing as the way as it has in the past per council's direction.
Thank you, sir. Approval of the agenda. Mr. Rivera, you're recognized. I did see your hand, sir.
Thank you, sir, and I apologize for that, for going in too early. I have a resolution, sir, that I passed out on Monday to city council members. You just received a letter from Congresswoman Kathy Castor's office in regards to this. Since certain people are here and watching this, may I would ask the chair's consent to have this done, and I don't anticipate this taking a darn long time, but either before the consent agenda or after the consent agenda, whichever one the chair would prefer, if you would so grant that, sir. Solely for my one, that's,
After public
oh,
comment.
yeah, I'm so sorry, after, yeah, of course, yeah. Public comment, of course, yeah.
Any objection to that, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, I think we need a robust discussion about what we as a city and a community can do to help the Cuban people. And a resolution like this is more of a publicity stunt, like the press conference yesterday. And we need to think hard about what we can actually do to help the Cuban people. If we pass something that says generically that we're in favor of them, it's not going to help anybody in Cuba. We can say that publicly, and I'm happy to pass a resolution that says simply that we support the Cuban people in getting economic and political freedom. But I'd like to have a robust discussion sometime about actual solutions that help the Cuban people, not just a statement that's not going to help them at all. Thank you.
May I respond to that? since
You
I
recognize,
was-
Mr. Rivera.
Thank you very much. It's the first time that I've ever had somebody whose family is not from Cuba, not a Cuban refugee, say that something that I'm trying to do on Cuba from the heart is a publicity stunt, Mr. Carlson, and that's not well taken at all. I'm simply asking that my motion, if Mr. Carlson wants to deal with other issues to combat my publicity stunt, so to speak, he can do so at another time, and he can ask for that at that time, but I'm asking for my motion to be heard at that time.
Well, publicity stunt or not, we're going to respect all council members. This is a place that we conduct business. If you want a motion on the floor asking to move the resolution, we'll consider move the resolution with a vote. And if Mr. Carlson wants to entertain a workshop of some type of sort or a robust discussion about how we can help our Cuban Americans, that'll be fine to do so as well.
But if I may, can I have it heard after the public comment, sir?
Yes, sir. Mr.
Thank you,
What we'll do is, anybody else on this discussion before I ask for a motion to move? Mr. Shelby, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, sir. A motion for that is absolutely appropriate, particularly as the point where you are is for the approval of the agenda and the addendum, so you can make additions, substitutions, deletions, pulling things from the consent docket for staff reports. So this is actually something that you can take up and not take action on it necessarily right now, but to edit to the agenda at that point in time that the councilman is requesting, which is after public comment. So the answer is, once we do that, and it is a motion, I don't know whether there's a second to it yet. I don't recall.
We have a second to Mr. Vieira's motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro.
Now, after that is done, then we can go complete the process of the approval and of the agenda and the addendum. But this is the first step. Obviously, it's the first motion.
All right, we have a motion for Mr. Vieira for the resolution, second by Mr. Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Roll call, please. Roll call.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder, Carlson,
No.
Maniscalco, Vieira,
Oh, yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried with Carlson voting no and Dingfelder being absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move on to the agenda for approvals. We have a continuance. We have other changes to the agenda item. We have item number 3.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Item number 3 is on for first reading consideration. However, council, that needs to be heard as a public hearing in that the public was noticed. It could be heard anytime after 9 a.m., but that is going to have to be amended to be heard as a public hearing.
All right, when we get to item number 3, we amend the public hearing, correct, sir?
Yes, and you can take it up anytime after 9 o'clock. It's council's pleasure.
All right. Item number 29, Mr. Shelby.
Item number 29 is a request for it to be heard under staff reports due to the amount exceeding $3 million, so that would be heard at or after 1:30 p.m.
All right,
Per
1:30.
council's policy. And also, Mr. Chairman, a reminder that you had sent out a memo to pull numbers 5 and 42 for discussion under staff reports at 1:30, and I believe those are notated in the final agenda under those item numbers. So that puts the administration on notice with regard to that those would be heard in the afternoon.
Madam Clerk, I saw a substitute to come in under 42, is that correct?
Yes, and there is additionally a substitution on number
All right.
42. That's correct.
5 and 42.
5 and 42.
5 and 40. Let me double check, please. Let me just make sure that that's correct. Yes, it is.
I think they should be on the consent items. They've been
Yes.
pulled.
And I believe that's it with regard to the approval of the agenda and the addendum, unless there's anything else.
All right, let's go to
motion-
staff reports.
If we go through those now, we could find out who can be, from the administration, needs to be present, and the rest of the administration who are not needed can actually be released to go back to what they do. So if you wish to go through those, item number 100 is the administration update. Item number 2 is a resolution regarding a release of an easement which was continued from June 3rd. I don't know whether there's going to be a staff report on it, probably because it was continued. Then the other items, for instance, item number 102 is on the agenda because of the amount. If there are no questions, then all you would need to do then at the time is to move the resolution. Same thing with item number 103, and I believe item 104.
Mr. Dingfelder is not here. I don't know if he's going to be here or not. Haven't heard anything, but I would just ask that maybe Mr. Baird maybe stick around in case Mr. Dingfelder does show up, because there are infrastructure issues here, and I know he's always interested in those items.
Okay, we can go, if that's fine with council, that'll be fine. My understanding is that council member Dingfelder is expected, he's running late.
Thank you, sir.
So when he gets here, we can review that if if council's pleasure to do that, to see if we can expedite staff reports for the afternoon. Other than that, I have nothing further. A motion to approve would be in order.
Gentlemen, anyone need else be released for the agenda? Motion approved.
So move.
Mr. Rand has moved, Mr. Situate second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're open for business. Mr. Cost, I think you're up for ceremonials. Gentlemen, we do have a full packed agenda today, so I know everyone has issues and concerns. Let's make sure we limit them to a few discussions, get them passed, so we can kind of get out of here today, because there's a lot of items today. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm pleased to introduce a longtime friend, Arizona Jenkins. I think all of you know him or are friends with him also. He is very, very involved in the community. Many people know him because he hits many of the major cigar places. In fact, this is the first time I've seen him without a cigar. Arizona is someone who's beloved by everyone. Somebody just said to me yesterday, there's a guy I've been trying to meet, and I've been calling, he doesn't return my calls, but Arizona was walking down the street with him. And so Arizona just is really beloved. He's involved with lots of things. I'll tell one other quick story. You learn a lot by having friends like Arizona. He and I were walking down the street one day, and he said, he said, "Why are you walking so slow?" And I said, "I thought you needed to go slow." He said, "No." And he hit the gas on it. You can't see it now, but he hit the gas on his chair, and he zoomed way past me and said, "You need to speed up." So he's taught me a lot, has been a good friend, and he's been a good friend of the community, and he just won a statewide award for helping the disability community. So I just wanted to read this real fast. Commendation. Tampa City Council wishes to recognize, commend your many achievements as a recipient of the Adilio Valdez Leadership Advocacy Award. As a passionate advocate for citizens of all abilities, you've guided our transportation authority to continue to make investments in serving all the citizens of Tampa. Through New Horizons Support Group, you have worked tirelessly to mentor citizens and the youth of our city to be champions of their own cause and independence. The skills New Horizons empowers its members with free public transportation training, social gatherings, and self-advocacy training. Your kindness, generosity of spirit, and leadership that has inspired countless citizens have made the city of Tampa a better place for all of its citizens. So I'd like to let Arizona say something, but would any of you like to say something first?
Ms. Vieira, you recognize, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman Carlson, for this commendation for this fine gentleman. We appreciate it. And hi to everybody there. And, sir, thank you for your advocacy and whatnot. And disabilities is a very important issue. I see Raquel there, who does such a great job with the city of Tampa for issues with disabilities. Mr. Fox, who I know has a big heart for that issue as well. And thank you, Councilman Carlson, for bringing this forward. But thank you for just what you do, sir, in the community to show people that heart is more important than muscle. Thank you so much, sir.
Ms. Maniscalco, you recognize, sir.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, sir, on this well-deserved award. You're a good man. We're friends. We know each other through the cigar shops. As Councilman Carlson mentioned, we know where to find you, and you have a lot of fans. You have quite a following, and you have a lot of respect from a lot of people. Congratulations. We're glad that you're here with us today, sir.
Ms. Citro, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Arizona, my friend. As many people know that Arizona and I work together on livable roadways. Arizona, you always bring up the topic of the needs for the disabled, and I thank you for being there. And I thank you for your friendship, and I always enjoy working with you. Arizona, congratulations.
Mr. Miranda?
Thank you, Chairman. Like was said before, my colleagues, it's a pleasure to see you once again, and you and your group behind you, Mr. Fox, and the rest of you. I appreciate what you do for those who can't do a lot, but they can do more than most of us who can do a lot, and we appreciate it very much. Congratulations to you, and especially that you beat Mr. Carlton with those long legs that he has. And I think you can beat him if you didn't put it in high gear, because your heart's bigger than his legs. Thank you very much.
Well, Mr. Arizona, again, thank you for what you do. You show this community that no matter what disabilities you have, you can get out there and still serve the public. You can still get out there and enjoy the people and the comfort and some of the social activities that go on in our community. The next time I see you at La Ferrona, one's on me, my friend.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlson.
And as Arizona is coming up, I'll just say for anybody watching who needs help in the disability community or needs support, Arizona is not someone who likes to get commendations. He likes to have the work show for itself. But please contact him because he is a big advocate in the community. So Arizona, you want to say anything?
Thank you all for this award. This is a very honor to be here with you guys today. As you say, the work is never done. You're gonna always work every day to improve the life of people with disabilities. That is the main goal, to improve equality life for everyone. Transportation, housing, whatever it may be. But you must also enjoy life. If you don't enjoy life, what is your purpose? So, you see me in the cigar shops, you see me going to Cuba, going to this place, that place, because I enjoy it. It gives me pleasure to help people with disabilities as well as people who doesn't have disabilities. So we have to train, teach, and that's what we do for our life every day. And one day I want to be able to sit on the counter with you guys So appreciate every one of you guys. I know you guys for a long time, and you know, there's work to be done always. So you need me, I'm always there. I know how to get a hold of you guys, and I got my natural support system behind me, and those people behind me are my force to drive forward. Without these people behind me, I don't know if I can do it alone. So you have to have people behind you that love you, that's going to support you, and push you to do what you need to do. God bless you all, and thank you again.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
I think Mr. Vieira is up with a presentation. Item number 2. All right, Mr. Vieira, you up with item number 2?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's my great pleasure here to include with us here, to welcome here, Miss Renee Warmock, who is a Tampa native, USF alumni, and filmmaker who produced the inspirational film Because of Sam. It premiered at Tampa Theater to a sold-out audience. I was proud to be there. The film chronicles the inspirational tale of another Tampa native by the name of Sam Piazza, who Renee discovered in the Tampa Tribune when Sam won Homecoming King at Gaither High School. Sam began his stardom as a United Way brand ambassador at the age of 4, has a black belt in karate, led his Best Buddies chapter in high school, has worked at PDQ, a wonderful place, for 8 years, and was born with Down syndrome. Because of Sam, transforms how the world views people with disabilities and inspires everyone to pursue their dreams. This is a very, very wonderful effort. I had the pleasure of meeting Sam maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago when I was on the board of Tampa Bay Best Buddies, and Sam is one of the nicest people I know, who comes from a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful family. So I'd like to, now we're first doing the trailer, correct? If we could put the film up, please. Thank you.
Okay, IT?
Come on, Sam, you gotta pick it up now.
No way. No way. Tice O'Neil?
Yeah, man. What's
No
up,
way.
man?
Life is unkind. We fall, but we keep getting up. Over and 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 over.
So I'm a better deputy and a better friend because of Sam.
To other employers, I would say, look at Sam and look what he has meant to our company.
Look all that I have done. And you can do the same.
Because of Sam, our life is richer. My life is much richer.
Peace out.
Wonderful. So I would like to first invite for a brief presentation, Renee and Sam. Coming up, folks.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Councilman Vieira, for having us here, and to the distinguished council that's present. Thank you so much for the support of Because of Sam. I'm here to talk about another back-to-back champion. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I have Sam Piazza, who has been a back-to-back champion his whole life. He's 31 years old, and I'm so pleased to be with him and to have produced this movie. Creating laws and having them on the books is one thing, but having folks understand them and care about them and support them, as you know, is really what matters. Because of Sam touches hearts and changes minds, and we're so honored that the Piazza family and Sam shares their story through Because of Sam. And July 31st, I'm announcing this today, we're going to have another screening at Tampa Theater at 1 o'clock. Tickets on sale next week. I'm going to have Sam say a few words here, and appreciate this.
Hi, Councilman. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for having us here today to promote awareness of the Americans with Disability Act. As a person with an intellectual developmental disability, I want people to see me for who I am. Because Sam teaches the world that people with Down syndrome should not be defined by their own disability. We are very capable of living normal lives, having a job for 9 years, and having a girlfriend, and making the positive impact in the world. I hope you will watch Because of Sam and tell your friends, family, and business colleagues to watch it too. Thank you.
Well, and you know, Sam is one of so many people in this city, in this community, who have special needs and intellectual disabilities. He is one of many, but he's just such an exceptional, wonderful guy. So we'll now leave it to our colleagues in Tampa City Council. If you gentlemen want to speak, go for it.
Mr. Maniscalco?
Thank you very much, Councilman Vieira, for bringing Sam and Renee here. You are an inspiration, sir. I've followed you for many years, and every day you are an inspiration to other people. You serve the community, you give hope to people, you inspire people, you make people want to become better just by you, by your presence, by your message, by the things that you say. So you should be very proud of yourself. And to Renee, thank you for what you've done, you know, for the film that you've made, and bringing awareness, bringing the story of Sam to a larger audience so people know and understand. But I hope you both realize the impact, the positive impact that you make on this community. And we sincerely appreciate you. Thank you.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes, thanks. And first of all, thanks to my colleague, Mr. Vieira, for bringing this up. He's been a tireless advocate for the disability community and knows, I think, more than all of us combined about that issue. And so we always rely on him and appreciate his help with that. Thanks to Renee for telling this important story. And I will tell you, from my point of view, I'll do everything I can to promote it. So please send me a link to the event on the 31st so we can make sure that everybody gets out. And then thanks to Sam. It was great meeting you downstairs. With your personality, you're going to go really far and do lots of great things. And I look forward to partnering with you on anything you need to do in the community. Thank you so much.
Mr. Citro?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Sam, when I heard that you were going to be here today, I had to go down and meet you personally because all my friends told me about you. And I want you to know, sir, you are a superstar. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I cannot wait to see you in the future, and I cannot wait to see Because of Sam. My friend, keep up the good things that you are doing. You are a role model for everyone.
Mr. Dingfelder?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, Sam, I don't know you, but I know Renee for many, many years, and she's a great person. So any friend of Renee is a good friend of mine. We appreciate the awareness that you've given to our community, both of you, and all the hard work, and we'll try and make it to the next showing, Renee. Thank you.
Mr. Moran?
Sam, I've never had the pleasure of meeting you or Renee. I've seen you before, and I want to thank, first of all, Councilman Vieira for doing the thing that he does best, highlighting life as it is today. And what I see in the just a little clip of your movie, you can do things that I can't do. You can ride that bike much better than I can. And I saw that karate coming, I went the other way. You were trained and you made yourself what you are today, and you're an inspiration to every American who is willing to try something to succeed. And you've been trying and you have succeeded. I don't know about you, but there's been no movie made of any council member that I know of, so you're one step ahead of us. Congratulations, you're a star and a symbol of a dream that if you wanted to make it happen, you can make it happen. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Well, Sam, I haven't met you, but I've met folks like you who've been given an opportunity to shed light on what they've struggled with and how they were able to help other people with their struggles. It's great to have people see your unselfishness, how you're out there every day bringing joy, and people are watching you, giving inspiration. And when those folks are in that gym, those other young kids, and they see you lifting those weights and see your smile, it's like, I want to do that. I want to be a part of that. So, Mr. Vieira and Renee, if you would just get me that link so my community and some of the Hispanic communities can see Sam and get that inspiration, what's what I call the infection of success. And they get overjoyed by seeing somebody who say, he's just like me. He did it. I can do it. So thank you for your work, Sam, Mr. Vieira. Again, we appreciate you for your knowledge on this issue.
And Mr. Chairman, I think Renee wanted to say one last thing, if we may.
Absolutely.
If we may. Thank you. Go ahead.
The version that showed in the Tampa Theater 2 years ago this month did not include the final enhanced version, and it has in it the one you'll see on July 31st. Thaddeus Bullard, AKA WWE superstar Titus O'Neil, another hometown hero. And so we're very excited for the first time to show that version at Tampa Theater. We want to sell it out. 700 seats. It's a lower cap due to COVID, but we look forward to getting that link to you, and tickets go on sale next week.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Vieira. We'll wait till Mr. Vieira gets back to his seat. We did move to deal with the resolution point when he gets back, and I think maybe later on this afternoon, maybe Mr. Carlos will make a motion in reference to the workshop, in reference to our Cuban brothers and sisters.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Councilman Dingfelder has arrived, so perhaps before you go into public comment, you can address the issue of going items 100 through 111 to see which staff needs to be present for those resolutions or staff reports and which can be.
Madam Clerk, make sure we acknowledge Mr. Dingfelder is here for the record. Mr. Dingfelder, I held up those items. I knew you deal with a lot of infrastructure issues in the committee, and so I asked that Mr. Beard stick around. If there's a need, anything you want to release anyone, that is the time to do so now, sir.
Yeah, I took a look at these, as I always do, a few days ago. Have any of them has there been a motion to release any of them already? Or
No, sir, there's no motion to release anybody. I think most of them are continuances, or some will be here to do presentations, but there were a bunch of infrastructure items, so I did not want to release Mr. Beard.
And I'm okay with 102, 103, 104, 105, which are all big ticket items. I've spoken to staff and read the memorandums. But what I did want to say is, in response to those, and especially 104, to Mr. Baird, is that they've been doing a really good job on the EBO with some of these larger ticket items. And we appreciate their efforts, and we don't want them to always think we're fussing at them all the time, and when they do a good job, we want to give that shout out. So with that, I'm comfortable with releasing 102, 3, 4, and 5, unless somebody else had other questions.
I too looked at them, that's why I did not question the items, but I did not want to release them knowing that sometimes you have questions on infrastructure items,
Thank you, Mr.
big
Chairman.
ticket items.
Appreciate it.
So with that being said, I guess we could release Mr. Beard from this afternoon's 1:30. And we'll move on to item number 3. I did receive a letter from Kathy Castor, our Congresswoman. I think my aide Sonia is down at the podium. So, Mr. Vera, before you even start, I'm just going to go ahead and ask her, since she is our Congresswoman and she could not be here, she did personally send me a memorandum, and I'll have Ms. Sonia Henderson read that memorandum.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes? I'm sorry, the walk-on resolution. Thank you for the correction, sir. You may proceed, Ms. Henderson.
Good morning. Dear Chairman Goods, I urge you to support Councilman Vieira's resolution expressing support for the people of Cuba and the protests that continue on the island. As a longtime advocate for human rights, I join you in standing with the Cuban people who are expressing their fundamental rights of free assembly and expression. The Cuban people deserve freedom and human dignity. Generations of Cubans helped build Tampa into a home we know and love. As Councilman Vieira's resolution rightfully notes, Tampa has unique historical, familial, and cultural ties to Cuba and values our best aspirational American values of liberty, tolerance, and freedom. You have an opportunity to show the people of Tampa, hear the protesters in Cuba, and support their calls for freedom and dictatorship, disease, and poverty. We must continue to back the Cuban people. No matter how long their fight for liberty and freedom, they must prevail. As Jose Marti says, like stones rolling down hills, far ideas reach their objectives despite all obstacles and barriers. It must be possible to speed and hinder them, but not impossible to stop them. Sincerely, Kathy Castor, U.S. Representative, Florida, District 14.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. Mr. Vera, before you speak, point of clarity for Mr. Shelby. I know we have a resolution on the floor at this particular time, but I believe we have some people to speak. I'm sorry, he's not in the room.
If I may, I was looking at doing it after public comment. I
After
wouldn't be.
okay, after
yes,
public
sir.
comment?
Oh, yeah, no. Public,
okay,
public,
all right.
yeah, of course. Yes, sir. If I may.
All right, we'll go to public comment.
Good morning, everybody. It's my first time here. I'm a Cuban American, and I want to thank the police in Tampa. First of all, because they help us and we support the police. For the Cuban community, it's been very emotional, but also heart-touching. And as a Cuban, I am a 52 years old man, but I left Cuba when I was 25. My father is still in Cuba. I have cousins. I have friends. What is happening in Cuba right now is horrifying. The Cuban people are being massacred by their own government. This, what I'm doing right now, just here speaking to you guys, will cost me my life in Cuba. We need the support of all the communities on the free world. I want to ask you something. There is a man here, his name is Albert Fox. He is been working for the Cuban government, not for us. He is not Cuban. He is not our voice. Our voices are being clear. We need freedom. Our people are suffering. It's been too much. For 62 years, the Cuban community haven't ever been available to choose their governments. For a president of a country saying, if you are not a communist, we're gonna, communists go to the street and kill the others. Last night, my people in the street of Cuba are still fighting for their freedom. So please help us. I want to thank also Kathy Castor, because she hears our voice I'm finally here speaking out. It is incredible. There's still people calling the regime government. The people of Cuba have never voted for it. People of Cuba are suffering not because of the embargo. People of Cuba are suffering because their government. When a Cuban person left the island, anywhere where we go, we would prosper it. Why we cannot prosper in Cuba? Why can a fisherman cannot fish?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank
comments.
you. Bye.
State your name. You can begin, sir.
Good morning. My name is Trey Weingart. I'm an attorney with Hill Ward Henderson, and I'm here on behalf of Barbara and Gordon Babbitt regarding agenda item 101. This deals with a release of easement application for an area next to 505 South Royal Palm Way. Now, I was here last month and we discussed this area briefly, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background to remind you. This easement was part of what's now one lot, but was originally platted as several lots. They included what was called Lot E, which was a small lot kind of behind the main buildable properties. And then there was an alleyway that surrounded those, or that Lot E. Now these lots have all been combined, despite the fact that 100 years ago, this beach park area was platted. They've now been combined into one lot that includes this Lot E. However, the alleyway that exists in that area has never been released. Now, the reason that this release of easement application is before the council members today is because the easement has gone back for 100 years and kind of protected the overall plan of the beach park neighborhood and the homes from being overbuilt. And from that time until today, this easement has existed as a buffer between the homes, including the Babbitt's home. Now, the lot that's been created as a result of this rezoning process and now the easement application is a lot that's non-conforming under city code because there's an interior lot of less than 30 degrees. Now, there's been litigation filed over that, and that issue is somewhat separate from this. But the easement itself is all that remains to protect the 100-year-old history of this neighborhood and stop what would be lot line to lot line building in this area. In fact, if this easement is released and the building has already commenced, what the result will be is that a 30-foot high structure will be only 7 feet from my client, the Babbitt's backyard. And that'll result in, again, three structures, or structures on three different sides that are each only 7 feet away. And it's a total change, and I'd submit not for the better, change to the Beach Park neighborhood, which is really one of the most historic and beautiful neighborhoods in our city. And because of that, we're asking that today, if the city council is going to vote on this issue, that they deny the release of easement. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ernie, I see you ran into the room, so I gather you're going to speak on this item at 1:30, sir? We won't speak on it now, but I just want to know if you're going to speak on it at 1 o'clock, at 1:30? All right, we'll see you at 1:30, sir. Thank you. We'll continue public comment. Mr. Fox.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the City Council. Obviously, what I was going to say, I'm not going to say because I need to comment on what the previous gentleman said. I never met that man in my life. I've never seen him in my life. But he should know, and you should know, that I have never been paid a penny by the Cuban government, nor have I ever been paid a penny by any corporation in any of the work that I've done for 20 years in Cuba. Mr. Chairman and members of the council, with all due respect, I plead with you to postpone this vote on this resolution that's coming up today because it is never a good idea to legislate in the moment of passion And that's what's happening here. You all should have absolute clarity that I'm not questioning any member's motives or integrity. I am questioning the judgment that what happened, the demonstrations that took place in Cuba, were not generated by a change in the government. They were generated because the people of Cuba are suffering. There's no food. They have no syringes to give themselves vaccines. The United States government, the greatest government on the planet, stopped the ship with medical supplies to Cuba. And so the strategy is to make the Cuban people suffer, and they'll take to the streets and overthrow the government. That's not going to happen today. It hasn't happened in 62 years, and it's not going to happen. The best way to help the people of Cuba is remove the United States blockade. And I want to just read you an email that I got it says, this is from a friend of mine that I've known for 20 years, 11:33 a.m. July 12th. He says, it is unusual disturbance, but some good people who were upset with the problems in the economy and badly poisoned and mangled negative dissidents under the Miami Mafia payroll. The results that you see on the news right now are under control. Please somehow end, big bold letters, in the blockade, and that'll make 90% of the things easier for us. But you know the story well. Hugs to you and your family, Miguel. So I plead for you to postpone this when calmer heads will prevail. This is done in a passion. I mean, these people, were taken to the streets. There's violence taking place, and that's just not going to accomplish anything. It's not going to help the people of Cuba.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Hello.
Anytime, Mr. Maul, on you, sir.
How you do? I haven't been here for a while. Missed you all. I'm here to speak about, perhaps you know it, perhaps you don't, but the city of Tampa.
Go ahead and state your name for the record, Mr. Maul.
I called a hearing.
Go ahead and state your name.
Oh, my name is John Moll, M-O-L-L. I reside at 4104 North Lynn Avenue, Tampa, Florida. And I have a picture here of my house that I reside in, built in 1908. The picture is about 1920, and that's the way it looked then. This is my grandfather and grandmother and the family that they had and raised in this house. If you want to see how it looks today, you can Google home of John Mall, and it looks different today than it did back in 1920. What I'm concerned with now, I'm trying to get a mitigation credit. I've been trying to do that for 7 years, and I'm hitting a stone wall. So where I go from now depends upon, I guess, what happens between now and next week. The city is charging homesteaders for having a roof over their bed. This roof here you can see was cedar shake. I put a one that was impermeable, didn't leak when I was sleeping, and so the city flew a Cessna Skywagon over and used LADAR and said, you got a roof a certain size, you owe a certain kind of money. And they justified it by citing commercial code, which I cannot meet, which was that I had to store a 100-year flood and be able to draw it down in 72 hours. I don't know who else they're imposing this on. There are some people who just give a call and they get 100% mitigation, but I've been 7 years and just nothing at all. I don't even get 10%. They say you have a roof this size, you pay this much. And what that amount can be is whatever somebody says. I guess it could be my charge now. It used to be $19 when they started it. It's now over $260. Who knows what it'll be 10 years from now, 5,000? So I guess there's a timer going off somewhere, I don't see it. So anyways, that's my concern. I'm just asking the question, can the city apply commercial code to homesteaders to deny a mitigation credit? All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Maul.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
My name is Cedric Powell. I'm here regarding the historical designation application on 1908 36th Street.
Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. This is item number 3. Is that correct, sir, on the agenda?
That's correct.
Ms. Pettis-Mackle is here. Maybe she can enlighten council.
Ms. Kumar?
Maria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. This item that he's referring to is item number 3 that's on the agenda for the Tierra del Agua Cigar Factory. I apologize. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. This item is number 3, is a public hearing regarding the Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory. It's on for public hearing, and I'd ask for this item to be heard at the time that it's scheduled, after 9 a.m.
That'd be appropriate.
Thank you.
Mr. Powell, your item is coming up right to public comment, and that way you'll have time to speak a little more in length in reference to what you're trying to do with this item, okay?
Yes.
All right, if you just hold on, we'll get back with you. So
Thank you, sir.
comment. Thank you, sir. Bless you, sir. That's your shot, right?
How you doing, sister?
Mentes not, Tampa, Florida. Hey, if you're revolutionary, you call it reactionary. And that's what you're hearing today. And you see reactionary, you see disparities, and they're unapologetic about it, and they're really disingenuous about it. And that's this Cuban situation. In this Cuban situation they have going, they're making big conversation about that. It ain't nothing. The real problem in Cuba is a 60-some year blockade. That's the real problem in Cuba. Hey, can you hold my time, please? Bro, why don't you take your phone call outside? Respectfully.
Okay, then. May continue, sir.
Can you? Yeah, so what you have going on right now is reaction, and you see reaction, you just see how disingenuous people are. You see the fact of the matter is, when people stood up for African lives, for black lives, they say, oh, you can't march in the street, you got the right to run over them by car, you got to do this, you can't spin the block and go the other direction. You got the right to run over them, and now you see a garbage governor talking about, oh no, well, like, see, that's different. Yeah, God works in mysterious ways. But the fact of the matter is, a 60-some year blockade, if you want to do something about that, there's something wrong about that. You understand? Because the people won't stand and be a banana republic, then you want to treat them a certain way. And then we have our representative right here, Orlando Gould, that represent District 5. They talking about what's going on in Cuba. Let's talk about what's going on in District 5. Let's talk about 600,000 bicycle stops for African people, and nobody's standing up for that. Let's talk about reparations for African people right here in America, and nobody's saying anything about that. You understand? Foolishness, straight foolishness. $1 billion city budget, $1 billion city budget. And we're 26% of this population, and nobody say anything about that. Absolutely, positively, nothing is said about that. Ignorance, straight ignorance. And they use a con game, they run a con game on you to make you think we should accept this as African people. Well, it's a percentage of African people who are advanced enough, and it's a percentage of real people who's advanced enough to know the problem in Cuba isn't the problem with Castro. It isn't the problem with socialism. It isn't the problem with communism. It's the problem with American and white imperialism. It's called manifest destiny, where white folks think they can run anything and run it the way they want. It's greed and it's capitalism. That's the problem. And you need to wake up and see the real problem. And our representative right here in Tampa, Florida, let's not go to Cuba. Let's not go 90 miles from Miami. Let's go right here in our district. Our representative right here in our district needs to stand up for us and stop running these games and having people coming down here insulting African people. Oh, poverty mentality. I'm not African. Oh, they're not taxpayers. No. We need to stand up for reality and stand up for African people. That's what we need. And if you want to stand up for Cuban people, then say end the blockade. Why in the hell do they have a blockade in a country you can't even get in medical supplies? That's the reality, and that's real.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments.
Good morning, Connie Burton. I'm always touched when I hear the prayers that's offered to the council prior to you beginning to do the people's work. But when I look in the agenda, I'm always searching in terms of what is going to be a benefit to the community in which I represent. I truly believe all people have a right to human dignity. All people have a right to housing. All people should have a right to live in peace. But how can we do that beyond just proclamations? How do we get our political leadership from the federal level, the state level, and the local level to see what the real needs of the people? How can we become so fixated with jumping from issue to issue that when we talk about gentrification inside of this city, we haven't been able to stop that. When we're talking about ending oppression, we haven't been able to stop it here. That inside of our community, that I'm often hearing from this political body, is that why we can't do it. Well, I believe you could do it if you want to do it. If you had political will and if you had political want, you can transform East Tampa so it can become the model. If people say that America is the greatest country of the world, and I haven't lived a lot of places, I'm telling you what I see in East Tampa is dying hope. What I'm seeing is people being demoralized. Because when I look at this agenda of 111 pages, resolutions, and things that money is moving all through this city with a $1.3 billion budget, and all we see in our communities are certificates, more arrests, more crime, no hope, more hopelessness. So if you want to do something and be a model for other countries to see, start at home. Let us move toward making East Tampa better. And so we just don't have to have worthless resolutions.
Good afternoon. I'm here to speak about the plans for 5023 to have a liquor license and rezoning done.
Excuse me 1 second, sir. Mr. Shelby, you recognize, sir.
I believe that is set for a public hearing. I don't recall which item that is. Is that on for a second reading? Which is the address, sir?
He just asked me to come up here.
Item number 96 is a second reading. That'll be taken up when that item is called up specifically. You'll have that opportunity to speak, sir.
Sir, that's a public hearing, so we'll take you at that time when that item comes up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
My name is Michael Fitro. I am a senior at St. Petersburg College in the Public Policy and Administration program with Professor Kronschnabel. I'm actually here for agenda item number 3, E 2021-8CH27 for Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory to become an historic.
Sir, item number 3, if you're here for item number 3, once we finish public comment, we'll get to item number 3 and you'll be able to speak on that particular time.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was just brought up here. Thank you.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Councilman. My name is Andre Hill. I'm an original black Native American of Tampa. The reason I'm here today is a concern. You, the City Council, you've been very supportive of moving forward with individuals in the black community developing and stabilizing themselves. But I'm anticipating a bottleneck. And the reason I'm here today is one of the things as a native Tampanian, when I lived away, particularly in Washington, D.C., I learned 2 valuable things. When I worked in a law firm, there are templates, to file petitions or organizational structures. And these templates are very common. And one of the things that we anticipate is that in getting packages approved, the issue is always it has to clear legal. And so my concern is there are templates and there are precedents that have been set all over this country where people in the community working with CAC or the CRA can get things done expeditiously. I think that there's a bottleneck here in the city of Tampa getting things approved expeditiously, and I think that the CRA and City Council need to encourage the current administration to implement special provisions, particularly for Black Americans. Now, we have requests for small projects like $50,000. I've seen entire building complexes go up by outside developers that are coming in and getting things done. So I think there need to be some special attention paid or provisions made for these small Black Americans that are typically first generation entrepreneurs that typically don't have their own banking systems to expedite things through the bureaucracy of the city. So I'm encouraging the city of Tampa, City Council, to look into the bottleneck of getting things done through legal. There are templates, there are precedents. And when I was a contractor in Washington, D.C., there was a problem getting contractors because there was a bottleneck in the payment process. Well, I did good because we helped them establish a program to expedite the payment. And I got completed a lot of properties in Washington, D.C. It just took the initiative to say, what's the problem? I worked in a law firm. Do we need more people to come in to do the research on precedents that have already been set in other cities? So I think the City Council should encourage the current administration to look into this issue. while these legal
Thank you,
is.
Mr. Hill. We appreciate your comments, sir.
All
Thank
right.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. If you could hold the timer for a second while I get these photos on the board. Okay, my name is Marissa Bodden. I'm here to talk about the manatee deaths that have been reported in Florida. More manatees have died already this year than in any other year in Florida's recorded history, primarily from starvation due to the loss of seagrass beds. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission reported that 841 manatee deaths were recorded between January 1st and July 2nd, breaking the previous record of 830 that died in 2013 because of red tide. Biologists believe that water pollution is killing the seagrass beds, causing these deaths. Most deaths occurred during the colder months when manatees migrated to and through the Indian River Lagoon, where the majority of seagrass died off. The manatee was once classified as endangered, but is now reclassified as threatened. The federal government says approximately 6,300 manatees live in Florida waters, which has increased. More than 750 manatees have died since the beginning of the year, the most deaths ever recorded in a 5-month period. The problem started in 2011 when an algae superbloom covered more than 130,000 acres of water, blocking the sunlight and causing a massive die-off of seagrass. When the algae blooms are really bad, you can't see your hand below the surface. The algae blooms started earlier this year. Over a 10 years period, this has decreased of about 46,000 acres of seagrass has decreased. The high number of manatee deaths this year led the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to designate an unusual mortality event and open an investigation. There are some facilities in Florida that have been rehabilitating these manatees. There's more to read in these articles, but what I want to get to is for Tampa, you can see we have two right there and there. We have two manatee viewing areas right around the Gulf. So we play a part in this role. All of Florida needs to act, but also we can act as Tampa. I recommend that what we do is help with planting seagrass and rehabilitating manatees. And if we can't plant seagrass, then to have teams go out and give them seagrass to eat. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more public comment at this time.
Thank you, sir. I mean, we have 7. All right.
Good morning. The first speaker is going to be Thomas Conley. Thomas, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, Councilman Dudes and fellow council members. My name is Tom Conley, and I'm the Virginia Park Neighborhood Association president. And I'm speaking concerning agenda item 111, concerning the use of communications media technology for city council meetings. I am asking that the Tampa City Council pass a resolution to amend its rules of procedures, which were last modified on November 21st, 2013. The genie is out of the bottle, and it is not practicable or reasonable to cease this option. Public participation has grown with the introduction of the CMT and has brought many new voices to be heard by the Tampa City Council. And in fact, in your resolution 2020-490, paragraph states, whereas the City Council is not prevented from continuing to utilize CMT for the conduct of public meetings after expiration of EO 2069, provided that a quorum of voting members is present at physical location and provided the meetings otherwise comply with Chapter 286 Florida statutes and the Florida Constitution, you have recognized that you can continue to use this technology to garner public input and participation in your meetings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
The next speaker is going to be Gordon Babbitt. Gordon, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak. Gordon Babbitt, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thanks for the opportunity to speak. I have a couple points and a question. My wife, Barbara Babbitt, and I have lived at our house at 4604 West Beach Park Drive since 1998. We are against releasing the easement because it would allow construction of a 30-plus foot tall structure within 7 feet of our property line.
Mr. Babbitt?
Yes?
Chairman Martin Shelby.
Mr. Shelby?
Yes, that is not a quasi-judicial matter. It's been continued. It appears under unfinished business, and I believe Mr. Wigginton would address that item when it comes up. But you can hear this gentleman now. It's not a quasi-judicial matter.
Okay, so we wanted to make sure. All right, you may continue, Mr. Babbitt. I'm sorry, but get some clarification, sir.
Okay. Let me start in the middle here. My wife, Barbara Babbitt, and I have lived at our house at 4604 West Beach Park Drive since 1998. We are against releasing the easement because it would allow construction of a 30-foot plus structure within 7 feet of our property line. We already have a house on both sides of our property within 7 feet. Allowing construction in the easement will create a canyon around our house, and several months of the year, no sunlight will enter our own backyard. We believe this will result in a significant reduction in the value of our property. Milano Homes is already building in the easement. So my question is, why is Milano building in the easement before it was released? Thank you for your time and any consideration you give to our issue.
The next speaker is going to be Carolyn Bennett. Carol, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name is Carol Ann Bennett. I am the new Vice President of FAN. The elections were held last night, and I want to congratulate Stephanie Pointer and Sandy Sanchez and Steve Meadows. I'm really looking forward to working with them. They are an incredible bunch of neighborhood advocates, and they sacrifice a lot of time from their responsibilities to help to make Tampa a better place. And I'm very proud to be working with them. The job of Tampa City Council has not changed in decades, despite the fact that the city of Tampa has changed dramatically. We have so many more people. We have so many more things coming before City Council. And I think Councilman Goods is right in saying that we need to cut things off at 11 o'clock. I love that idea because it's just unreasonable to ask people to sit until midnight so that they can be heard on important issues. The problem is the city has grown, but City Council has not. You guys should be full-time or 3/4 time or whatever time it needs to take to have more meetings. That is the problem. But cutting off public participation is not the solution. The CMT is allowing people to participate who otherwise cannot participate, and the city is better for their participation. There are many people that coming to city council meetings is an insurmountable obstacle all of the time. They will never be able to do it. And then there are other people who it's an insurmountable obstacle some of the time. However, CMT allows a lot more people to participate, and it's a benefit to the city and to, you know, everybody in Tampa. So I'm encouraging you to continue that along with the in-person meetings. I love seeing you guys in person, but you know, sometimes it's just too hard to be able to do it. So I encourage you to keep the CMT along with the in-person. And you know, if there's any way that we can get more meetings, that's the solution to the problem, not limiting public involvement. The other comment I want to make is on item number 110. I understand city staff needs more time on that. That's fine with me. The problem is they asked for continuance for a time when I'm going to be out of the state for a wedding, and as one of the co-authors of that amendment, I think I probably should be there. So I think they're going to ask you to continue it till September, and that's fine with me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
The next speaker was Stephanie Pointer. However, Stephanie did not phone in to participate. So we're going to move on to Jean Strohmeyer. Jean, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jean Strohmeyer, south of Gandy neighborhood. Congratulations to Stephanie and Carol Ann and Steve and Sanchez and the fan. I'm calling to ask you all to continue with 111 and to continue the CMT program, as I run a business that requires me to be at my computer. However, I can listen and participate. And my neighbors in our Inner Bay South of Gandy Neighborhood Association come to me and let me know about the meetings, and they let me know what's going on, and they ask that I participate on their behalf. So I would like for you guys to definitely keep this going. You know, we spent hundreds of hours in the chambers there, and as Carol Ann said, we love seeing you guys, but it's just not always possible, especially if we're missing dinner with our families and just missing time from home, just sitting there waiting. So I ask that you keep this going, since the digital age has been here for a while. We're getting older, but we can handle this. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
The next speaker is going to be Charbel Barakat. Charbel, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, honorable members of the Tampa City Council. My name is Charbel Barakat. I am a corporate and real estate lawyer that lives with my wife and 2 Tampa-born children in South Tampa. I am Vice Chair of the 2nd DCA Judicial Nominating Commission. I'm a member of the crew of the Knights of Santiago and a parishioner of Christ the King Catholic Church. In short, I am a proud Tampeño. I am also the son and husband of Cuban immigrants. I am a proud Cuban American, and I speak today on behalf of Councilman Vieira's resolution in support of the burgeoning Cuban protest movement. Why are Cubans protesting? Well, Cubans are known the world over for being hardworking and industrious. Cuban exiles have made their mark at every major walk of life, from business, finance, and law to politics, academia, and entertainment. Ironically, the only place that Cubans aren't successful is Cuba itself, and the blame for that lies squarely with its totalitarian Marxist-Leninist regime. After 62 years and counting, the people of Cuba have finally had enough. On July 11th, the people of Cuba took to the streets in more than 40 cities across the island, seeking not just food and medicine from their government, but respect for basic human dignities, for the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This movement is organic, unorganized, and grassroots, and deserves our collective support. Their demands are captured in the slogan, Patria y Vida, homeland and life. It flips the dictatorship's motto, Patria o Muerte, homeland or death, on its head, and stakes a claim that Cuba should be for all Cubans, not just the privileged party elites. This isn't a partisan issue. Councilman Vieira, whom I respect, and I may have our disagreements, but like all Americans, we share a belief in the core values enshrined in the Constitution and the self-evident truths of the Declaration of Independence. and furthermore, that those values are universal human values and inalienable God-given rights that should be defended, and their supporters supported wherever they may be. Some of you may reasonably ask, with so many challenges on our own doorstep, why should the Tampa City Council spend its valuable time focusing on the affairs of a foreign country? Well, first of all, Cuba and its people aren't so foreign. Tampa is home to the third largest population of Cuban Americans, as well as immigrants from countless other countries who've come here fleeing oppression and are watching these events equally closely. This is a deeply personal issue to many of your constituents, many of whom still have families suffering under the Castro regime. My wife and I are too. There are thousands more like us, and we vote early and often. Furthermore, as many of you know, the history of Tampa and the Republic of Cuba is deeply entwined. We aren't just recent immigrants. We are second, third, fourth generation ancestors who helped build this city in the days of Henry Plant. There wouldn't be an Ybor city without century influx of Cubans and its cigar factories, and Cuban independence would have been a far dimmer prospect.
Thank you, sir.
Tampa.
Thank you.
So, thank you for your
The next speaker is going to be Stephanie Pointer. Stephanie, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, gentlemen. Can I have an extra minute,
No, ma'am.
please? Oh, you're no fun today. Okay, I just wanted to start out by announcing to you guys that we have a new fan board. Was installed as president of FAN last night. Carol Ann Bennett is the vice president. Steve Meadows, treasurer from Fort Tampa. And Sandy Sanchez is now the secretary. So look forward to us reaching out to you guys, and we will love to see you come to visit. So bottom line is I'm not here for that. I'm here because, and I'll share our list of goals later via email. I signed up to speak about CMT. This process, while it may seem more cumbersome to some staff, it allows folks to appear who normally wouldn't. With my husband out of town and the sole taker of my children, I can't pull out of my house for hours on end. I have responsibilities at home today. Trust me, I'd much rather be there this morning. I have been in Tampa since 2012. I asked, how long has City Council been doing business on Thursdays? Ms. Fox Knowles responded to me promptly. She said, they've been doing it for at least the 18 years that I've been with the city. Well, maybe it's time to change that. In 2000, the population of Tampa was 303,000. According to the census, it's 404,000 today. So you guys have seen a 25% increase in the population of the city. I would argue that probably your responsibilities have increased more than that. While I personally like CMT, after spending weeks looking at the city's budgets on the budget committee, I was astounded at the overwhelming majority of the spending for the non-enterprise departments is in people power. Only small slivers are just devoted to expenses in most areas. With that being said, I would argue that staff use of CMT has actually increased their productivity. Sitting in the gallery, waiting to see if someone needs their expert testimony makes little sense when someone could be working at their desk, waiting to be called on by you gentlemen. I guess if you polled the city staff, they would agree with this statement. By the same token, if you are doing it for staff in order to be better stewards of the citizens' money, then it shouldn't be terribly difficult to include the public as well. City Council needs to look at this as an opportunity to continue to evolve as technology has become available. But realistically, you need to look at why you have 111 items on this or any agenda. It's unrealistic and overwhelming for part-time employees. City Council, your constituent base has grown by 25% in the last 20 years. It is time to change the way you do business to continue to serve the citizens in the most effective and efficient
Thank you,
way
Ms.
possible.
Pointer. Thank you.
The next speaker is going to be Diana Avila Barakat. If you can unmute yourself, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Daira Avila Barakat. I am the wife of Charbel Barakat, who spoke earlier today. I am a resident of South Tampa. a double graduate of the University of Florida, a dentist and a small business owner. I was born and raised in Pinar del Rio, Cuba. I came to this country when I was 15 years old. Living in Cuba, I never felt like I fit in. My family had different ideas on what was allowed. My dad was a political prisoner, and I honestly never thought I belonged anywhere until my family and I came to this country. When we arrived here, for the very first time in my life, I got a taste of what freedom is, a taste of what inclusion and acceptance is, and this became my country and my home. But today, my people have come out to the streets in Cuba because, as it turns out, I wasn't the only one that felt like I didn't belong. We can see today, as the people took to the streets, that there are thousands of Cubans that feel like they don't belong, like they don't have a voice. And they're all taking to the streets now. They're risking their lives, they're being killed, their children are being killed. They're risking it all to get that space in their country back that belongs to them, to get their freedom back, to get their basic human rights back. They're not protesting for food shortages. That's not what you hear them scream as they're being beaten and shot at in the streets. Freedom. That's what they're asking for. An end to 62 years of communist dictatorship. We as Americans, my home city of Tampa, we need to support that. We need to stand on the right side of history. And we need to stand for justice and freedom, because that is what this country stands for. And our brothers in Cuba and sisters in Cuba, they need our support. And they need it now. They don't need it later. They're bleeding out. They're being killed on the streets. Their human rights are being violated, and this needs attention now. The only thing that can keep them afloat is international attention. Otherwise, people will disappear. People will just be killed, and nobody will know their names. It's us supporting them and making a stand now. That's what matters. That's what counts. And it does matter, and it does make a difference. And we must do what we can to help them. I'm gonna finish with the words Patria y Vida, homeland and life, and that God bless America and God bless Cuba. And I will thank everybody for their support, everybody that's not Cuban, that wants to stand on the right side of history and wants to do something to support my people. I will greatly appreciate all your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, that's going to conclude the general public comment portion of today's agenda. Thank you.
Madam Clerk. I believe Mr. Dingfelder has slipped me a note here, gentlemen, in reference to the consent agenda item number 16. Is it, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize for requesting this a little late. Item 16 is the new mental health program that TPD is initiating, and I think it's important enough to have a brief, less than 5-minute discussion on, as opposed to just approving this item on consent. I am totally in favor of this item. I'm very supportive of what Chief Burkall and his team have been doing, as well as Chief Dugan, of course. But I just think it's important that the community hear that we are making progress on this important item. So I just request that we pull item 16 for a very civil and positive discussion.
Any questions on that, gentleman?
I wanted to second that. I know that Councilman Dingfelder brought that up in the budget, I think last year, if I recall, sir. And we all salute you for that, and I do agree. I mean, I think this is such an important issue, and to have a discussion on it, however brief, so I would strongly agree.
You're recognized, Mr. Shelby.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for council. If it's going to be a very brief staff report, did you want that, a short comment on item 16 during the consent docket, assuming that the staff can be present? I don't know whether you wanted to have Chief Dugan, or do you want to set it for 1:30 with the rest of your items that you pull from the consent
It's
docket?
best for 1:30, Mr. Shelby.
Thank
We
you,
don't
sir.
have night council tonight, so I think 1:30 would be appropriate, sir. So if staff is listening, we can have the chief or Burkall here at 1:30.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, well, there was a motion for that. Mr. Dingfelder with a motion. Ms. Vieira with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sure staff is listening, and either so you will call over to the chief's office. All right, Mr. Vieira, you're up, sir.
Thank you very much, Councilman, or Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate it. You know, before and if you'll indulge me for 5 or 6 minutes, I really appreciate it. This is, you know, and I hope I don't get emotional talking about this. This is a very important personal issue. When I heard people like the first gentleman that spoke, my good friends Charbel and Dyra, his wife, good people. I love Charbel's comments. We don't agree. He's more of a Ronald Reagan guy, I'm more of an FDR guy, but that's okay. But we agree on this. I think the biggest thing that we can do with this issue is, to quote Aretha Franklin, respect, RESPCT. When people whose families fled Cuba, the regime, talk about this. The press conference that we had yesterday, I would urge everybody to listen to Nancy Milan, who has family in Cuba. That was something that requires our respect. It was not a publicity stunt. Respect. We're taught to respect people who come from cultures and to respect refugees. And if we have an exception to the rule for the people here, then God help us. This is a statement that is about as controversial as eating a hot dog at Yankee Stadium. It's a statement about solidarity with those protesting right now in Cuba. They are protesting for liberty. They are protesting for the right to vote. They are protesting for privacy, for expression rights, for economic dignity, and for civil liberties. It tells the people here in Tampa, generations of Cuban Americans who are here, that this city has the backs of those who are in the streets risking their lives now in Cuba. It puts Tampa on the record of saying yes to liberty and to those risking their lives in Cuba, who are protesting against the very regime that my parents left in 1960. It puts City Council on the record of opposing that system. It's a statement that will unite all Cuban Americans in Tampa. I'm not looking for something that will divide us. Like I joke, you put 2 Cuban Americans in the room, you're going to get 5 opinions on politics. That's just the way it is. Look at me and my good friend Charbel. This has nothing to do whatsoever with engagement. We have had resolutions in this body on engagement. I have supported them. I oppose present U.S. policy as it applies to engagement with Cuba. I've said that many times. This particular resolution addresses issues that bring Cuban Americans in this city together. This is not a statement on travel to Cuba. I have traveled to Cuba. My mom's been to Cuba a few times to visit Hershey, Cuba, where she grew up and when she left when she was 11 years old. In fact, it approvingly talks about the fact that many Cuban American families in Tampa traveled to Cuba. It's not a statement on the means to the end. It's a statement on the end of liberty. It's not an affirmation of present U.S. policy, and it's certainly not meant to divide, nor should it be subject to arbitrary attempts to disrespect people and to divide us. I've always said yes to engagement with regards to Cuba since I've been an elected official and since I ran for office. There are many, many, many things that we can do to support the people of Cuba, including a change of policy. Take the vaccinations and the economic deprivation that challenge has caused in Cuba. The internet, people ranging from Governor DeSantis to Congresswoman Kathy Castor have spoken out on that issue. So many different issues that we can speak out on. This resolution deals with a very narrowly tailored issue that unites us. It's also a call for responsibility. For dealing with this issue in a responsible way. We've seen elected officials, including a certain person in Miami, deal with it in an irresponsible way. Something that I'm aghast at. Very much so, very much so. This is something that brings us together. My family left Cuba in 1960. My father came here, my late father, at the age of 16, lived in a building that's still there next to Academy Prep, over near Ybor City area. He shoveled fish for a living. My mother came here at the age of 11. My family left everything. And I don't care if you left in 1960 or on a freedom flight in 1965, or if you're a Marielito in 1980, or if you left in 1995, or if you came here 5 years ago. This resolution unites people, whether you're Republican or a Democrat. It's all about people's journey to Cuba and Cuba's journey to freedom. When I went to Cuba, it was very emotional. It was very emotional. I didn't go for business, I went for family. And when I went, it was very emotional. Everybody has their journey back to Cuba. There are some with us here in Tampa who will not return to Cuba until they die. They will not. My mother chose to return to Cuba before she died. Everybody has their journey home. Everybody has their journey back to Cuba. This resolution is about affirming people's basic desires for liberty and what people are dying for in the streets right now, regardless of your journey back home to Cuba. This should not be controversial. If someone wants to talk about another issue, fine, I have no problem with that. My record on those other issues is very, very clear. But don't attack this resolution. Don't attack those who went out yesterday at a press conference. Listen to my friend Nancy Milan and her words that she said. If those don't bring you to tears, then check yourself because you've just wrecked yourself. This is a common sense resolution. This should not take any more time than my long-winded speech. I will end it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're going to go down the line. This is going to be a topic that, I don't know if you have ever heard the term, the angry black man. Have you ever heard that term? The angry black man. Have you ever heard that term before? The angry black man. But it's not anger, it's passion. So one would say Mr. Vera today could be the angry Cuban man. But I feel the passion in his heart. Whoa. Mr. Maniscalco, you're recognized.
Thank you very much.
Go down the line.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councilman Vieira, for your words and for bringing this up. Every morning I wake up, and I am proud and glad to be an American. I'm glad and proud and honored to live in this country. I was born here, but I'm a first-generation American. My mother is a Cuban refugee, along with my grandparents who came here after 1961, and Tampa welcomed them from day one. Many, many good people that helped them make this place home. My grandmother died last year. My grandmother never witnessed a free Cuba. Her siblings are dead. Most of my cousins are dead. Some are still around in Miami. But for the most part, they don't know what a free Cuba is. They haven't known a free Cuba since before 1959. I love this country, and I love so much of what it stands for. And if you look at our Constitution, and it's always a controversial issue, but we have the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. The right to bear arms essentially protects our freedom of speech. One of Castro's first speeches in January, February 1959, maybe his first speech, was Armas para qué, which means guns for what? Arms for what? Why do we need guns? Typical of any dictatorship, from Hitler to North Korea to Cuba, you take people's guns away. You take away not just their voice, but you take away their weapons that help protect their freedom of speech. And that's one of the first things that happen. And as you see people in the streets now in Cuba, they don't have any way to defend themselves. Maybe they throw sticks, maybe they fight with rocks, whatever it is, but they cannot defend themselves. They cannot defend themselves in ways that Castro did against Batista, or Batista coming to power, or Hitler coming to power, or Mussolini coming to power, or Gaddafi coming to power. You go down the line, there were weapons there, but the people in Cuba are weaponless from this policy of 62 years ago. And I hear the current individual in power in Cuba blaming the U.S. embargo. Who puts blame on failures, on their own failures, narcissists, and I hate to say it, but losers? Instead of saying, you know, we've done this to ourselves, they go and find the scapegoat, and the scapegoat here is the U.S. embargo. What about the rest of the world? What about all the Italians and Canadians and everybody else that goes and travels to this country? What about all the other people that they trade with? So much that we get is from China. The former administration from the president said, China this, China that, China owns so much of our debt. we import so much from China. Why isn't everybody else helping the people of Cuba? It's not to blame the United States. They're doing it to themselves. It's communism for the masses and capitalism for those in power. Fidel Castro lived well, and he would say, allegedly, prove to me that I have $1 to my name and I'll resign tomorrow, or whatever he would say. You know, it is a failed policy. You can lift the embargo tomorrow and nothing's going to change because you're dealing with communists, and communists do not play fair. Dictators do not play fair. And sadly, it's always bloodshed that brings them to power. People will say, well, you haven't been to Cuba. How can you be a judge of what is happening down there? I don't need to go to North Korea to understand that things don't work. And the people of Cuba are tired. You know, my family gave up. They came to the United States and they said, this is our home and we'll never go back, and that's how they died. Not knowing a free Cuba, but it's a humanitarian crisis. You know, people want freedom. People want elections. People want to have freedom of speech. People are sick and tired. You know, I've heard mention, oh, because, you know, COVID has pushed people to the edge. And this is not a thing of you know, we're in the heat of the moment and passion. It's 62 years being in this moment. You know, I want to second this, and I'm going to second this, but you're asking for basic human rights and that we stand by them. How many Cuban Americans are here in Tampa? How many Cuban Americans are in Miami? Millions of people have left. And I have yet to meet one Cuban refugee that says, no, things in Cuba are good. I just came to the United States for a better job opportunity. My father left Sicily to come to the United States. He met my mother, married her, and found a job here. But my father can go back freely and see his family if he wants to in Sicily, where they live well. You know, hardworking individuals, but you don't have that in Cuba. So I'm glad that this is brought up, and, you know, 62 years, maybe there is some change. Totalitarian dictatorships do not work. That's why they have military coups. Okay? This regime in Cuba has lasted as it's lasted because of luck. People were tired of Batista, and Castro came to power.
30 seconds.
And I'll finish it up. But, you know, people are tired and want change. Castro got lucky because he had the Soviets. The Soviet Union has collapsed. North Korea exists because it's completely closed off from the rest of the world. China exists in a communist state embracing capitalism, but look how much, you know, we trade with them. Oh, we trade with the communist country. How much debt do we owe them? How much does Cuba owe to China? It's all about money in the end, but at the end of the day, communism doesn't work. Communism doesn't last, and Cuba got lucky because it's an island. It's an island, so you don't have to worry about invading forces like you do in other places. They had the Soviet support for a while. That collapsed over 30 years ago, but, you know, the people just want freedom and liberty, and that's why they come here. When they come to the United States, they see how wonderful this country is. Thank you very much.
I've asked the clerk to put everybody on our protocol timer since this is a hot topic, so Celine will have the timer. Mr. Carlson, you're recognized.
Yeah, I have a lot to say, but I'll say some things, and then if we have time later, I'll come back. I got involved in the Cuba issue decades ago because I had so many friends who are Cuban American in Tampa and other places, and listened to the horror stories that both of my colleagues just talked about just now, and I have the utmost respect for that. I also went to Cuba so that I could hear firsthand the stories and conditions that the Cuban people face, and it upset me, and it has upset everybody who I've seen who's gone to Cuba. And we all have been working to try to change the conditions and situation there. What I object to, and the reason why I use the word publicity, is when we make a statement that's not going to have any impact, then it's about publicity. There are real things that we can do to help the people of Cuba, and I have got a list of them, but a few years ago when a hurricane hit Puerto Rico, the Tampa Bay Rays took, I think it was 1 or 2 planes full of supplies to Puerto Rico. And because of the embargo, you can read it in the Miami Herald, the Cubans don't have enough syringes to inoculate people. And I can go through a whole list of things there. What was working was pushing capitalism in Cuba. The number, because of the changes that were made in 2014, the number of independent businesses more than doubled in Cuba. And then with the changes a couple years ago, the economy fell apart. And about 80% of Cubans who put their life savings in starting businesses lost them because of American rules. The problems in Cuba are not only because of the United States. They're in part because of the United States. And we in Tampa can do things to directly impact them. There are nonprofits here that directly support the Cuban people, and we can support them, and we can do other things. The other thing that's happened is that the mayor of Miami has called for war. He can use whatever words he wants, but he's called for war. The Cuban people don't want war. They want their government to change, but they don't want war. War, we've seen, why is it that the last president didn't start a new war? Because wars kill tens of thousands of people in the country they're attacking, plus it kills American citizens. I had friends who were in the Bay of Pigs, and they saw what happened there, and they were betrayed by the U.S. government and others, but they fought hard to try to help the Cubans get their freedom. We all need to work toward freedom for the Cuban people. We need to support the Cuban people. What I object to with this resolution is not that it, quote unquote, supports the Cuban people. What it does is it has language and rhetoric in it that can be used by somebody like the mayor of Miami and others to justify war. And I can tell you that I am in favor of lots of changes in Cuba, but I'm 100% against war. I'm against a military invasion. What I would like to do, Mr. Chair, now or later, is we don't need all the rhetoric in this resolution. What we need is something simple. I'm a communication person. If we're going to make a statement to support the Cuban people, let's say simply, instead of having 3 or 4 pages or whatever it is, let's say simply, the Tampa City Council fully supports the Cuban people in their efforts to gain political and economic freedom. And I'll make that as an amended motion or a substitute motion, and I'll fully support that. I fully support the Cuban people in trying to make change in the government. I don't support this resolution as it's written. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Carson, when it comes to that time for a motion on the floor, if you wish to put that on the floor as a friendly amendment to Mr. Vieira's resolution, you'll have that option at that time, sir. Mr. Citro, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In all of my professional career, 40 years, I have worked in West Tampa. And during that time, I have met so many Cuban Americans. Some that were born there, the majority that were born here. Refugees that came in many different time periods, from the 60s, 70s, 80s. And I have heard various opinions politically from my Cuban friends and the people that I've worked with. We have gone through 13 different administrations in this country. More Democrats than Republicans. And through all that time, my Cuban friends, Cuban descent, American Cubans, all they wanted is one thing: a political change in Cuba. This country has helped Cuba many, many times. And I will always support the Cuban people, the people of Cuban descent. And I will support this resolution. But hearing the horror stories of people going to visit Cuba with 4 or 5 or 6 suitcases full of things for their family, and only 1 suitcase making it through. Medical supplies being sent down there, and only a small fraction. And you better not take any prescription drugs or cash. Now is the time that the Cuban people in Cuba have spoken up and are shouting, "We want change now." And I will stand behind the Cuban people in Cuba, and I will stand behind the Cuban people here in Tampa and America. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Dingfelder, you're recognized.
I'm good on this topic, Mr. Chairman. I'll pass it to you.
Well, the legend, I know you got probably a lot to say because you know more than we know in this room.
I was thinking a little different, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I was, in all my years of public service, and I've enjoyed every one of them, I have never seen a resolution being discussed at this length in my 20-some years of public service. I would think now that we're calling up the National Guard to invade. We're calling up, and that's not it. It's a resolution. It's a plain and simple. What is a resolution? Can somebody tell me what it is?
Aspiration to get something done.
Everyone has a different opinion. That's what it is. But it means that whatever the subject matter may be or may not be interpreted, is that it's an expression of fact to say that this council is supportive of what they've seen on television, what's happened in the streets of Tampa, the wonder of hope. You know, when you don't have any hope, you really don't have a life. There's no hope, there's no tomorrow, because you've given up. And I think what this resolution is mainly to give hope to the people who, for a long time, have felt that they had no hope. And yes, I've been to Cuba starting back in 1954. And I went back in 2004. When I got off the plane, I looked around, and thanks to the only thing that God gave me that's still with me is my mind. When I got off the plane, not a damn thing had changed. Not the airport, not the means of transportation. You see people even using horseback to travel from one place to another. That's not saying it's good or bad. You've seen the same cabs that have 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 800, 900,000 miles, 1 million miles on them. Same ones from the 50s, from the 60s. But you see one thing that's really been kind of lost in this country. See, necessity brings in people with innovative ideas, changes. And necessity is the mother of all inventions. Because what the Cuban people have done, they have learned to make do with what they have, something that most of us in this country can't do with. Once I was riding in a cab, and I kept telling the guy, we better pull over. We have a problem. Your radiator's overboiling. When he opened the hood and I went to look at it, he had made a water pump out of a washing machine pump. And the hose was broken. And I asked him, how'd you think of this? He said, it's not how I had to think about it. This is the only way I had to learn to make something to get myself from point A to point B and make a living. We don't do that anymore in this country. And thank God we don't in a way. When you look at medicine, and that was brought up earlier today, for being such a small country, I've been watching, see, about a month ago, I gave myself a trial. I got rid of everything I had on the television. No internet, no national news, no nothing. And you know what? I feel like getting my freedom back. But I was watching WEDU the last couple of days, and if my memory serves me correct, guess what? It was about Cuba. And they were talking how a small country can have so much production in different areas of medicine. In fact, they even compared their cancer research or being ahead of ours. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but that's what was reported. And the people in Cuba want an opportunity to do what other people in the world have. And for whatever reason, and there's many of them, it's not happening. My father told me once when I was growing up, and he said, you know, Charlie, I thought America was a little different. But the educational system that you have here is much worse than the one we have in Cuba. He said any Cuban kid going to school can do much better than any American kid from the 6th grade. See, you have a different system, like in medicine. I'm not here to take an hour and a half of this debate.
Deference.
But in Cuba, when you want to be a doctor, you don't take all the other generic things. You take what you want when you're in high school. And you see in your practice, you see the medicine, you participate with doctors and you understand what you want to be. Here, you don't do that till you get to college. And they have an advancement in education that is second to none, because they want to have educated kids. But the problem is that at the end of the day, no matter what education you have, your pay is the same as someone who never did anything or wanted to make any changes. But I'm not here to talk about philosophy or anything else. The resolution here, pick any one of them you want. If I do like this, let's see here. Whereas the Cuban regime continues to deprive the people of Cuba of peaceful means to improve their lives. Is that a lie? No. Let's pick another one. This one. Pick one. Any one you want from what I've read here. They're all factual. Vast inspiration from the hierarchy of values of liberty. You can go on and on and on. All the items here. You know, what are we going to get if we sit down here for a day or 2 days and have a complete meeting on Cuba? Can we change anything? Tell me. Can you send things to Cuba? Can you send money to Cuba? Not this administration, but the prior administration, the one after before that one. It's changed twice already. There's been a visit for the first time from a sitting president of America in Cuba about 6 years ago. Did it make any change? For a day or two it did. They paved a couple of streets, and when he walked in, it looked like it was all clean. Evidently, he didn't live where I lived, or where I visited. So what I'm saying is that this is far. Can we change? Can this city of Tampa change what the federal government hasn't done? Absolutely not. So what are we going to debate? It's up to the Cuban people to take the first step, and they have. It's unprecedented that the young people, and there's where it's at, from what I've seen on the news, it's the young people along with some of the elder people that are marching. And when a country realizes that their future is in youth, and they're the ones that are marching, change will come in some form or another. And you have to admire those that are walking and protesting, because their lives are at risk. And I don't know what else to tell you, but I'm not going to participate in a Cuban ideological feelings about the pros and the cons and the which. We're not going to make a change. It's up to the federal government. The federal government has known this for a long, long time. And this is not about Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives. It's about people who are living under a depressed feeling that they have, and they want change. You and I don't know what it is to march for freedom. We were born in it. They have not. So it's up to this resolution. Like I said, it's a feeling of we help if we can. Tell us what you need. You're marching, you're doing things kind of peaceful. There was 1 or 2 incidents that came out the wrong way. And there was an arrest, or 2 or 3 maybe. And I appreciate that the police officers who were working yesterday or the day before also. So it's up to us to say yay or nay on this resolution, but I will not be debating on what to do with Cuba, because I don't have a damn power to change the system that we have now. This is not, we're not in the presidency's office. We have no power to do anything. And if some mayor called for an invasion, that mayor's sick. So it's just something that we face, and I see nothing wrong with the resolution. In fact, there's more whereases here than I've ever seen anywhere in my life. And I'm willing to support it because it's a need to show that we have the respect for those that are trying to change something in their homeland. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, it's called history. You know, I've never been to Cuba. Would love to go to visit. You know, I've never been to Africa either. Would love to go. But when I turn on the TV and I see the same unrest in Africa, I see it in Cuba. I see it here in the United States. That's why you've always heard me talk and say economic empowerment. That's what's happening in Africa. That's what's happening in Cuba. The people are empowering themselves now. Just like our neighborhood associations and my East Tampa area and some of the other market communities, they're empowering themselves, and those who've never spoken out before, those property owners, those people who live there, even Mr. Daniels and Miss Burton, who've been advocating for many, many years. You know, I've helped them out several times. When they call my office, I never not take their calls because they're still angry about things that are not being done. Some things I try to change, some things I just can't change. I don't have the power to change. If I could, I may get a magic wand and change it. You six gave me an option. I put on the table for a resolution for forgiveness for African Americans. And there was a 7-0 vote on that resolution. We know some of the bad things that have been done to black people. Those things still going now. We try to fix what we can. But see, what gets me right now, see, and I hope that someone who's Cuban understand what it feels like, because your parents live in, you feel that through your folks, how they feel. Well, that's how I feel as a black man when my folks talk about a colored water fountain and a white water fountain. How I feel when they say, well, this person didn't get this job because of their skin. Not because they wasn't qualified. You look at Cuba. When I look at Cuba, I see some Cubans that are as dark as me. That are as dark as me. Speak Spanish all day long. I see some Cubans that are pale as I don't know what. Same racial imbalance. Same racial imbalance. What happens? The haves and the have-nots. How do we change all that? This body, we can't change Cuba. We know we can't. I see what Mr. Carlson is saying. I take his point. But I also have to look at the reality of the humanistic nature of the resolution. It's not about war. I respect everybody's opinion. That's why I don't like us fighting about the issue. We can agree to disagree no matter what. But I think the resolution is a resolution that speaks to the general heart of humanity. That's what it speaks to. And again, we're not going to change Cuba because we don't have the power to change Cuba. We do have the power of this council saying we support those folks who want civil liberties, who want to be able to have a better life. No difference here in America where some of the things I put on the table that you fight for, to have our African American communities get some of the things they've never had. I don't always agree with a few of my constituents, Ms. Burton and Mr. Daniels, but I respect them to the utmost. No matter how he calls me out, no matter what they say, if they call me, I'm gonna do the best I can for what I can do. And that's all we can do right now. And if we can just send this off to say, hey, we support humanity, we support civil liberties, and we support what they're trying to do for democracy, I'm on board with that. And again, I do respect what Mr. Carlson is saying. And again, we got to move this boat along. I don't think we need another round. We see the passion, we see the fire, we see the hunger. We see culture. We see culture. So at this particular time, I think we can go ahead and if there's a motion to be put on the floor, let's put the motion on the floor and let's move on. We have a long agenda.
And Mr. Chair, I think Councilman Carlson had a motion to override my motion, if anybody wants to second that one.
Mr. Chair,
You
can I
recognize.
make the motion? And I think it would be an amendment or a substitute motion that is in the same spirit, but takes out some of the complicated language. And so I'd like to make a substitute motion that we approve, in place of the 2 pages here, a simple statement that can be used, you know, in banners and flags and posters and everything in Tampa, Miami, Cuba, Union City, everywhere else. And the simple statement would say, Tampa City Council fully supports the Cuban people in their efforts to gain political and economic freedom.
And you're saying that's all you want the resolution to say, sir?
Yes. You know, in my other business, communicating, the simpler it is, the better it is. You know, what is it from this 2 pages somebody's going to bring out that they can actually use? A simple statement is something that people can actually talk about. It's something that's useful for political purposes, and it takes out some of the complicated language that somebody like the mayor of Miami could use to start a war. But it is in the spirit of it, because it says Tampa City Council fully supports the Cuban people in their efforts to gain political and economic freedom.
Second. Chairman, I'm glad that, if I may speak,
You recognize.
I would, and listen to this, there's nothing wrong with making 2 motions. The first one and the second one for Mr. I'm not opposed to making 2 motions. I don't see anything that's in any way derogatory or anything, and if I did, I'd say it. There's a lot of whereases and a lot of things that happen, and and I had nothing to do with this, and this is as new to me as it is to anyone else, and I'm not against Mr. Carlton's motion, so why don't we pass them both? That way everyone's satisfied here.
If you want, we can first vote on mine, then vote on Councilman Carlson's.
Well, I hate to say this, Mr. Vieira, but under Robert Rules of Order, if he made a substitute motion, his takes over yours.
I mean, well, if I may procedurally, I think that you've got to defeat mine, then do that. Maybe, if I may suggest, we move on mine, and then Councilman Carlson can make his statement.
I think, Mr.
One of order. There is a question on the floor in reference to Robert's Rule of Order by Mr. Miranda of the validity of your motion overriding Mr. Vieira's current motion that's on the floor that was seconded. Mr. Shelby.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want to be clear, because what I heard, and I just want to clarify this, was this resolution was brought forth by Council Member Vieira.
Seconded by Maniscalco.
And I heard Mr. Maniscalco during the point of his comments saying that he seconded it. Does the clerk have that as a motion and a second on the floor?
Yes.
If that is the case, sir, that is the main motion, and that takes precedence unless a subsidiary motion is made to amend, or in this case, actually substitute. So if there's a second to that, was there a second to the motion to amend and or substitute, depending on what that is going to be?
Yes, Mr. Dingfelder seconded Mr. Carlson's substitute motion.
But wouldn't the friendly amendment have to be accepted by the maker of the motion?
I don't think it
But
was
This kills my motion. If you guys support this, this kills my motion. So-
Well,
Now, here's the question, counsel. With regard to a motion to amend or a substitute motion, there's a section in Robert's Rules called improper amendments. The following types of amendments are out of order. And number 2 says, one that merely makes the adoption of the amended question equivalent to rejection of the original motion. So the question would be then ultimately is, with regard to a motion to amend, certainly it's very rare for the city council to amend resolutions in front of it, but let me just say this. Depending on what the amendment is, it does act as, in fact, a substitute, but the question ultimately is, does this have the effect then, as Mr. Vieira states, of being an improper amendment in that it makes the adoption of the amended question equivalent to a rejection of the original motion? And that is a question that is a question of the rules, and ultimately it's a decision of the chair to determine whether it wants to entertain the amendment which is a subsidiary motion, and then council would vote on that. If it succeeds, then it takes the effect of superseding Mr. Vieira's motion in its entirety. If it doesn't, then it fails, and you go back to the motion, the main motion that's on the floor, and that's Mr. Vieira's motion, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco.
Mr. Carlson, do you have a resolution ready to go?
I think we would, my motion is to substitute or amend the motion to simply have that sentence. But here, based on what Councilmember Miranda said, how about this? And Councilman Vieira would have to agree with this. I would be willing to, we can fight out Robert's rules, but I would be willing to withdraw that motion if we could vote on both of them with my version going first. It's possible that both will pass. It's likely that both will pass. But before I make a decision about how I'm going to vote on the second one, I want to make sure that the first one gets through.
We'll go Mr. Dingfelder and back to you, sir.
This is so.
Dingfelder.
Well, based upon what Mr. Carlson said, I don't really have anything to add at this time. I'd like to hear Mr. Vieira's response to that, I guess.
I mean, if he wants to, I mean, I could go on and on to say that my resolution somehow will empower war with Cuba. I mean, that's just out of left field. I condemned what Mayor Suarez said in Miami. We talked yesterday at our publicity stunt, press conference, about a peaceful transfer of power in Cuba. There has been no statement supporting that whatsoever. I don't understand, how in any way that could go. If Councilman Carlson wants to make that, I'll support it as a separate motion, so long as it doesn't supersede or replace my motion.
Mr. Miranda, you're recognized, sir.
It's up to the maker of the motion on the second part, if that is a substitute motion that individual wants to make, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an expert in Robert Rules of Voters, but if he wants to vote on his first, then it's got to be a substitute motion. If he wants to make a separate motion, then he's second in line to Mr. Vieira's motion, because he's not substituting, he's bringing in a new motion. So I'm not an attorney, I'm just a guy in the street who happened to be here, and thank God I landed here. I really enjoyed it.
We have an friendly amended motion by Mr. Carlson and Mr. Dingfelder. My question again, with that being said, the original maker of the motion is Mr. Vieira, correct, sir?
Yes.
Yes. And so he has to.
I also have to add that you use the term friendly amendment, which in this case, based on what I've been hearing, I don't think it's accepted as a friendly amendment. For the sake of
time, if I may, how about we vote on my motion, and then we vote on Councilman Carlson's motion, and we just move on from this, so that we can get on to our agenda.
That was going to be my second.
I'm surprised this took more than 5 minutes. I'm going to be very honest.
Mr. Carlson, I'm going to let you finish up, and I'm going to make the decision what we're going to do.
Yeah, the only proposal I had a minute ago was, and I agree that Mr. Miranda is right. What I would be willing to do if we have to vote on the substitute and then on the other motion, I would be willing to withdraw the substitute if we could vote on the substitute as a separate motion before we vote on the other one. Because I'd like to see, and that would be up to the maker of the original motion to agree to or not. If he agrees to it, then we'll vote on both, but we'll vote on one first.
I'd like mine to go first, if I may.
Back to kindergarten. We're back in elementary school.
We're going to do this.
Well, tell you what, for the sake, Mr. Chair, do you have a preference on that?
I do have a preference.
Tell me what it is, and I'll go.
My preference is simple, okay? We want to have unified council here. Personally, I see nothing wrong with Mr. Vieira's motion. I respect what Mr. Carlson is trying to do in reference to what he believes or what he thinks it makes send a different type of message. So if there is two resolutions that wants to be presented, you were the first maker of your motion. That's why I asked if he has one to present, or he can have Marty or legal make one. We represent that motion. But I think there are two different issues here at hand, and I think there should be two different motions. It's my opinion. So Mr. Shelby, I'd like to go ahead. I don't know what point of privilege or not, but I'd like to go ahead and put two separate motions. If that's the case, if Mr. Carlson wants to make a motion, he can make a motion in reference to his resolution. Mr. Vieira was first. We vote on his resolution.
Well, it goes beyond, Mr. Chairman, it goes beyond a point of privilege. Let me just state your Rule 4 under parliamentary procedures. Rule K, the chair shall decide all questions of procedure and order, and the decision shall stand unless reversed by a majority vote of the entire council.
And I defer to you, Mr. Chair. This should have ended.
I'm gonna hear Mr. Dingfelder, and then I'm gonna go, we move on. We got a long agenda, we've got to move on. Mr. Dingfelder.
I think procedurally, just for precedent purposes, I think we're a little off track. From what I heard, Mr. Vieira made a motion, it was seconded. Mr. Carlson made a substitute motion, or we could call it something else. I can't remember the word Mr. Shelby used. Basically eliminating the, most of the whereases clauses, virtually all of the whereases clauses, and substituting in a different whereas clause. I think procedurally and with precedent, that's what we've always done when we have a substitute motion. When we have a motion on the original motion, we vote on the second motion first, and then we go back to the primary motion.
All right, Mr.
So it does concern me that we're breaking from what I thought was tradition.
All right.
This is
Shelby?
Council, this is a very unusual
All right,
circumstance.
so Mr. Shelby?
Yes, thank
So
you.
if Mr. Dingfelder is
Yes.
saying, as I interpreted it, since Mr. Carlson has put the substitute motion on it with Mr. Dingfelder's second, we vote on that. If it dies, it dies. If it goes, it supersedes Mr. Vieira's motion?
Yes.
So in that case, if, once you look it up, you tell me what the rule is, we'll go by the rule, we'll go from there.
Well, I did look it up, and when you start to do motions to amend, and it gets to the point where it's very substantive, it becomes technically, literally, a substitution. I have to ask, specifically, and I look at Robert's rules, it goes through quite an extensive way to strike words, add words, substitute words, take out paragraphs. For instance, your resolution has a title.
Mr. Chair, we can easily solve this. I already offered, if you'll agree, since he said you're the one in charge, if you'll agree to allow both motions to go forward, I'll withdraw the substitute.
That's fine with me, sir.
In what order?
So based on the chair's offer to allow both to move forward, which order are we going to do?
I think in all fairness, Mr. Vieira should go first, and your motion will be second, sir.
Then I will withdraw with respect to, and thanks to Mr. Dingfelder, I will withdraw the motion.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Vieira on the original motion with Mr. Maniscalco seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Maniscalco? Yes. Vieira?
C.
Citro?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Dingfelder?
No.
Carlson?
I'm voting no, as I said before, because I object to some of the whereas clauses and other language, but I have full support for the Cuban people. Thank you.
And Goods?
Yes.
Motion carried with Dingfelder and Carlson voting none.
All right,
So
that's carried. Now we have Mr. Carlson wants to put a motion on the floor. We have nothing in writing but what you've stated. So if you can state that again.
And I
for
can
the
send
record.
this. I can send this to the clerk. I would like to make a motion that Tampa City Council approve a statement that, quote, Tampa City Council fully supports the Cuban people in their efforts to gain political and economic freedom.
I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Dingfelder. Roll call vote. Mr. Shelby, you're recognized.
This would be to come back this afternoon with something in writing, because what you have here is you have a statement which sounded like a title, which would be in the therefore, but in the preamble, which is where usually the whereas clauses are. I don't know what this is going to look like, and I'd like to have
It's only one sentence. It's not a title. It's just
Oh, so you're just making not for purposes of a resolution, because it wouldn't be in a form of a resolution. That's what I'm asking.
We can put in whatever form you want, but what I called it is a statement, that Tampa City Council approves a statement that where we can go to the Cuban Americans in Tampa, Miami, Union City, across the United States, and the Cubans in Cuba and elsewhere, and say, Tampa City Council fully supports the Cuban people in their efforts to gain political and economic freedom.
And Mr. Shelby, I do think it should be in the form of a resolution. I think that was the intent of Mr. Carlson.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about. But
so
the
just
thing is,
format it and bring it back this afternoon.
that's what I'd
It's
have to
one
work
sentence.
for, and I'd have to work with Mr. Carlson to make sure it's in the form with the intent that he wants, and it's in the form of a resolution.
And it's only going to be one sentence, though. But could we just vote to bring it back this afternoon?
Your motion's on the floor, sir. I mean, Mr. Shelby can get it typed up in the form of a resolution or a statement. I mean, it's however he feels it's best to come back this afternoon.
Thank you, and I appreciate my colleagues in the community for talking about this so much. As the other resolution says, Tampa has a long history with Cuba, and I think there are things that we can do. As I mentioned earlier, there are humanitarian groups that are have been actively for years working with Cuba. There are religious groups, there are research groups. There are lots of things that we as city council and as leaders in our community that we have and can do to try to alleviate the immediate situation, the immediate urgent situation for the Cuban people, and long term we can support them. So I will bring this back. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Carlson in the form of a resolution/statement with Mr. Deanfellow second.
I would support it, but I don't know. I think Mr. Shelby is correct. You must have it in writing. We can't pass something that's not in writing.
That's what I thought.
So if I can, Mr. Chairman, to
Yes.
follow up, Mr. Miranda, I thank you, and I think that's an appropriate way to go. So basically, this vote is to come back. It's a statement to direct me, working with Mr. Miranda, to come back this afternoon with a resolution in writing that could be signed by the chair and the clerk.
That's fine. Again, the motion on the floor, Mr. Carlson, second Mr. Dingfelder.
And I want to make sure this is not a substitute motion, this is a separate one,
It's a
correct?
separate motion, sir.
Okay, because
Separate motion.
there's a lot of issues of moral clarity in my motion that I want to
Mr.
make
Vera,
sure.
it's a second motion. This we got yours out of the way first. This is a second one, Mr. Carlson.
Your motion
Roll
has
call
passed.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco, Vieira,
Yes.
and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
See the resolution back this afternoon, the final approval on that item. All right. Like I said, we have a long agenda, gentlemen. We need to move best we can. Item number 3.
Motion to open up the public hearing for item number 3, please.
Supposed to open up by
3 through
Mr.
37, 3 through 73, excuse me.
Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Citro. All in favor?
Aye.
We are now open.
Good morning, members of City Council. I'm here to briefly talk about item number 3, the Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory. It's on your agenda for consideration for the local landmark designation. This item, I understand that the property owner is present downstairs and a member of the public. I just wanted to bring to City Council's attention that this item is scheduled for a petition for review regarding a special use application. That hearing is scheduled for July 29th, and I wanted to ensure that the property owner or the public do not speak regarding that petition for review because it's not noticed for today. It's only noticed for the consideration for the local landmark designation. And respectfully, that's all I'm asking, is that the public comment be focused only on what is scheduled for today.
Gotcha.
Thank you. And then Miss Elaine Lunn is here for staff. I believe she's appearing remotely. She'll give the presentation for the item number 3.
All right, we'll hear her.
Yes, good morning, council. Can everyone hear me okay? This is Elaine Lund with Historic Preservation Staff. Are you hearing me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. So this item for your consideration this morning is the local historic landmark designation of the Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory. If I may share my screen, please. So the Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory is located at 1908 North 36th Street. It's in the community of Gary. Properties are considered by the Historic Preservation Commission, or the HPC, at a public hearing to determine whether they meet the criteria for local historic designation found in Section 27-257 of the city's Code of Ordinances. Local historic designation preserves historic landmarks and districts, provides for review of alterations to designated properties, safeguards the heritage of the city, and provides economic benefits. The Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory was constructed circa 1908 in Gary, which is east of Ybor City. The image on the left is a 1915 map showing the brick structure at the southwest corner of 9th Avenue and 36th Street. And you can see another cigar factory on the block to the west there, the Antonio Labatiata cigar factory, and to the north, a series of wood frame worker houses there. The image on the right is the modern day aerial photograph of the same area with the subject site outlined in red. The Tierra del Lago Cigar Company was founded in 1904 by W.H. Streeter in Lakeland for the manufacture of clear Havana cigars. The factory operated in a room over the Clance block in the corner of Pine Street and Kentucky Avenue, where this building still stands in downtown Lakeland today. Streeter expanded his business to the 3.5-story factory in Gary in 1908. This rectangular blonde brick cigar factory has decorative brickwork that exhibits the Romanesque revival style, and the structure is recognized as a cigar factory building with its height, large massing, east-to-west orientation, and fenestration pattern typical of that industrial building style. The factory was designed by Fred J. James, a prominent architect in West Tampa and Tampa. The principal brand manufactured by the Tierra del Lago Company was Oh You Know, because it is unnecessary to ask a buyer what kind of cigar suits his taste best. The cigar company moved to Ybor City in 1919, and the building was then home to the Gary Masonic Lodge for the next several decades. Gary was a thriving community in the early 1900s, known for its farms and its proximity to the local rail lines. Gary incorporated as a city in 1915 and was annexed into the city of Tampa in 1923. Cigar factories made a significant impact and contribution to the founding, design, and development of the early municipalities of Ybor City, West Tampa, and Gary. The early population of the area grew in direct proportion to the number of people coming here to seek employment in the cigar factories and other industries. There are currently 11 designated cigar factories, locally designated cigar factories in the city. These are either individually designated or as part of one of the local historic districts. This is a significantly lower number than the approximately over 200 factories that once existed in the city. So this application was made on August 9th, 2020 by the owner of the property. It was added to the HPC's work plan on November 10th, 2020. And the HPC made its recommendation to City Council for the designation on March 9th, 2021. And the Planning Commission found the application consistent with the city's comprehensive plan on April 5th. Notice has been provided to the owner, nearby property owners, and registered organization for today's public hearing. The local landmark designation of the Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory would provide protection for this dwindling historic resource type. The factory meets the requirements of the City of Tampa's Code of Ordinances, Section 27257, for landmark designation. The building was constructed and achieved its significance during the period of historic significance, which is considered to be generally 50 years. The historic resource is significant in the areas of industry and architecture. Additionally, owner support is an item that must be considered for the designation, and I would like to thank the owner of this property for coming forward to request the designation and for working with us through this process. So in summary, the Historic Preservation Commission reviewed the application on March 9th and recommended approval. The Planning Commission has reviewed the application as well and found it to be consistent. Therefore, the staff is recommending that Tampa City Council approve the designation of the Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory, 1908 North 36th Street, as a local landmark based on its meeting the criteria in Section 27-257.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions, council? Okay. I believe that we have, at a minimum, we have the petitioner, the applicant who wanted to speak to us. Mr. Powell?
It'll play out at the public hearing. You know how the board, the board's going to react. And basically, are you looking?
Someone mute their phone or their computer, please.
It might come with some conditions if you're willing to.
Who is it?
Oh.
All right, we have the petitioner.
The property owner, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Powell still there? Cedric?
Well, let's go.
All right, well, I guess we have,
Was Mr. Powell
still there?
Mr. Powell?
That's not
Is Mr.
Powell, but
No, it's not
he's
Mr.
one of the other.
I don't believe that, is Mr. Powell here, the person who's making the?
yes, member of the public.
Your mic's not on.
Mr. Chairman?
All right, well, we'll hear from the member of the public. I thought Mr. Powell was there.
No, I believe he should be present. We can check on two. There's no one else here present for this?
Is there anybody else in the room, sir?
Anybody other than this gentleman? There was a gentleman who was here earlier.
He must have left.
He left.
All right, well, I guess we'll hear from the public.
Where's he going?
Go ahead, sir, you're welcome to speak.
Okay, I didn't know. I wanted to make sure I came at the right time this time. No, he left. He had told me to let you all know he had left. He ran into me in the other room. But I am here also just quickly on this motion as well. In support of that recommendation, I wanted to come to speak in support of preserving this place as a
Need your
historic
name, sir?
site. Michael Fitro.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and I'm a student at St. Petersburg College. This is for one of my case studies in local government, working on seeing how local government works and picking a case study to decide to help make a recommendation. Besides being the cigar factory, it also served as a Freemasonic lodge and was heavily invested in as well, with tens of thousands to eventually hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I do believe that having served multiple uses within the community, having met all of the requirements and needs in order to become a historic preserved site, and then with the additions of it with public safety, better safety measures with it, education, and bringing in tourism for economic growth, and I believe bringing folks together closer socially, preserving the history, honoring where we come from. I would like to say and support that. I think that we should make this a preserved historic site, and that I agree with the recommendation, and just want to thank you for your time. It's simple and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else speak on this side? Who to close?
So,
So,
second.
Before you close, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Defoe?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one or two things about this particular building. Back in about 2004 or 2003, when Mr. Carl was city attorney, there was an effort to preserve and historically designate all the cigar factories in the city. And some of them got done voluntarily, and then some of them resisted. In this particular building, the pastor who owned the church owned the property at the time resisted heavily. He said, "You're going to make me put in new windows and this and that." He said, "Our little church can't afford it." And he was successful in resisting, and we understood his position at the time. Time went on, and now it's in the hands of a private developer who obviously has the wherewithal and the capital to renovate and take this building back to its original condition and put it to good use. The church put it to good use during the years they had it, but they didn't have the money to fix it up. But now I'm really proud of Mr. Powell and his team that they're going to do this, and I'll support it wholeheartedly.
All right, we'll move to close by Mr. Miranda's. I think it was seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote. Going for that one, okay.
First reading, it has to be read by title? Yes.
Mr. Maniscalco, you're a historian there.
Yes, sir. And I always am happy to see historic preservation, because so much was demolished over the last 60, 70 years with urban renewal and the interstate and whatnot. So I'm happy to see this. So I have an ordinance being ordinance being considered for first reading consideration. An ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, designating Tierra del Lago Cigar Factory located at 1908 North 36th Street, Tampa, Florida, as more particularly described in Section 3 hereof, as a local landmark, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Mr. Scalco has moved it. Mr. Defoe has seconded it. Roll call vote.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira, and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption will be held on August 5th, 2021 at 9:30 a.m.
Just one quick note, thanks to the city staff who put together that long history on the building. We need more of that in our community, and it's so helpful, and I hope that valuable information is circulated in the community. Thank you.
Mr. Dunfield, I don't know who you know that, if you know that young man or not.
This young man?
Mr. Powell.
Oh, yes, sir.
For you those who don't know him, he's a Port Tampa kid. Man now. Brother was Chucky, played for UT, but surgically with the Florida Southern. Played with Desmond Allison. I'm very proud of this young man. He's become a quite successful developer, entrepreneur. He's buying things in his community, in the different marginalized communities, and trying to fix the place up. And I'm just so proud of him. I know his sister passed away a couple weeks ago, and my condolences to her family. But a great job on the work he's trying to do, and he's become a great, great young man for our community. Item number 4.
Move to continue to November 4th, 2021.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Dingfield. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right, number 5 will be at 1:30. We go to our consent agenda items. Public safety, Mr. Citro, items number 6 through 19, sir.
Yes, sir.
16 will be,
Yes, I understand.
yes, sir.
I would like to move all those items with the exception of item 16.
Second.
This is Mr. Citro has moved it, Mr. Dingfield has seconded it. Roll call vote.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Yes.
Carlson,
Sorry, we moved so fast. I have to recuse myself on number 7. Could we just pull number 7 out, please?
Mr. Chair, in that case, then I will move item agendas number 6 through 19 with the exception of 7 and 16.
Second.
Citro has moved it, Mr. Dingfield again seconded it. Roll call vote.
Miranda, Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Chair, could I just state the nature of my conflict before you?
Yes, sir.
Just the company with which I'm retained has a client that has an interest in number 7, and so I would respectfully abstain and also file my paper form with the clerk. I think can we vote to accept this, receive and file?
Yes, we proceed to file.
Second.
Mr. Carlson made a motion, Mr. Dingfield second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, Ms. Citro, once he steps out, you can go back to number 7, sir.
Mr. Chair, I move the resolution for item number 7.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson abstaining.
Mr. Maniscalco, items number 20 to 28, Parks and Recreation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move items 20 through 28.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson being absent at vote.
Ms. Dingfelder, Public Works, items 29 to 39, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
can. I'm sorry, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. If I recall correctly, and the clerk can confirm, it was on the addendum to pull item 29
That's
and move
correct.
it. But if that is not, if the council is willing to take it today, because Brad Barrett has been, excused from the other items, if there's no objection, I'm sure the administration wouldn't mind number 29 also being moved, either now or later at council's pleasure. Is it still the
You read
intent?
our subject item, any concerns in reference to this item, or can we move forward?
29.
29, it's on the addendum?
It was on the addendum because of the
On the
dollar
addendum,
amount?
Because of the dollar amount.
Well, with that, Mr. Chairman, hearing nothing, I'll move items 29 through 39.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Randall, could you move the Finance Committee reports excluding number 42? Yes, sir.
Items 40 through
Second.
I have a question.
Mr. Dingfelder, question.
Thank you. In regard, I'm going to support the item and support the motion, but item 40 is specifically the appointment of a particular gentleman, I don't know him, as a member of the VRB. And these are important positions, the Variance Review Board and some of these other boards, the Barrio and similar types of boards. And when I looked at the backup for this, and I know this is the mayor's appointment, but when I looked at the backup, I don't really find a whole lot of information in terms of, you know, how the person feels about these issues or anything like that. I'm just wondering, and I'll talk to the clerk about this, but I'm just wondering if we can sort of beef up a questionnaire so we can understand the philosophy of the person who's applying for this. You know, are they a hardcore property rights person, or are they somebody that's more neighborhood oriented or something like that, you know, to try and flesh that out a little bit before I for one and the rest of you vote on a person in the abstract. So anyway,
You want to take that out?
no, I'm gonna leave that alone, and I just wanted to bring that up, and I'm gonna talk to Shirley, our clerk, about that issue and see if we can come up with some more information for future reference.
I'm sure she's listening. Mr. Miranda has,
I like to make a change on number. I'm 42 with Al Sugar, hold 44.
Okay.
To allow, if I remember that, there's a council member whose family member is getting a little. She worked for this, not she entitled to that what she did, and I just don't want somebody later on in the future to accuse this council of anything.
okay.
What was that, if I can? Item number 44, Mr.
Yeah.
Miranda?
44.
Okay. Mr. Miranda is reminding me in regard to item 44, and I guess his memory is better than mine, that my wife received some proceeds, I think last year, not
Right.
necessarily this coming year, from the Tampa Hillsborough Film and Digital Media Commission.
Which she earned.
Yeah, I'm sure she probably earned much more than she got. But anyway, with that said, Mr. Miranda, I appreciate you reminding me of that, and I will recuse myself from item 44, just out as an abundance of caution, and Mr. Shelby and I will fill out the appropriate paperwork. Thank you, Mr. Miranda.
Thank you.
All right. I'll wait for him to,
We'll take that separately, please.
yes, sir. Mr. Miranda has moved items 40, 41 through 43, 45, 46, and 47 through 50.
50, right.
And second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Citro. Roll call.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Everything but 44, yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
and Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, Mr. Dingfelder, step out one quick second for 44, and we'll get that one out of the way, and we'll move on.
Consider me out.
All right.
Could I say one thing while is he walking out? While he's walking out, Adam Smith, I don't know the other person who was appointed here. I need to get to know her, I guess. But Adam Smith, back on 42. I just want.
I'm sorry, we're not taking up 42 now.
Yeah, we're
is
not
that
taking
correct?
up 42.
No, while he was walking out, I was going to just make a statement about 42. Sorry.
Well-
Anyway. Okay. I was just going to say thanks to the mayor for hiring Adam Smith, because I think he's a great person who's been around a long time.
He doesn't have
You
to.
gonna stay in or you going out?
This far.
Okay, Mr. Miranda, go ahead. Mr. Miranda, go ahead. We're gonna move out in 44. Go ahead, sir.
Move item number 44, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Second by Mr. Citro. Roll call.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Dingfelder abstaining.
All right, Mr. Carlson, Building and Zoning, 51 through 65.
Yes, sir, I'd like to move 51 through 65, please.
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call.
Citro.
Yes.
Vieira.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, Transportation Committee, Mr. Vieira.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. I hereby move items 66 through 73.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda, roll call.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco. Vieira.
Yes.
Citro. Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right.
Chairman, move items 74 to be held for review hearing on September 2nd, 2021 at 10:30 in the morning.
Second by Mr. Maniscalco, all in favor?
Aye. Move item 75
Second.
to be held at public hearing August the 26th at 10:30 a.m., the council chambers, third floor.
Second by Mr. Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Open public hearings, Mr. Chairman, on 76 through 82.
Second.
Second by Mr. Maniscalco, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, hearings are open. Number 76. All right, staff?
Good morning, Council. Patrick Perez, Assistant City Attorney. This is the second reading on the parking ordinance brought to attention by Councilman Maniscalco to allow police officers and parking enforcement specialists to write citations for commercial vehicles left in residential areas. There have been no changes since the first reading, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from staff? Mr. Maniscalco, recognized.
I saw that this was a unanimous vote for the first reading, and I just want to say thank you to the council for the support.
Anyone else?
Second.
All right. Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Mr. Maniscalco, would you read it, sir?
Do we need a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
So moved. Second.
We're moving too fast. Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco's moved. Mr. Vieira, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Maniscalco, sir.
Thank you very much. I have an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida relating to the authority to issue parking citations, making revisions to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Parking, amending Article 1, Administrative Provisions, Division 1, General Provisions, Administrative Authority Definitions, Section 15-4.5, Authority to issue citations for parking tickets, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an
Second.
effective date.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote.
Vieira.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Item number 77. Anybody from staff on 77?
Motion closed?
Yeah, let's just second.
All right, move close. Second by Mr. Dingfeld. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Vieira, can you read 77?
It would be my pleasure.
Point of order, Ms. Debbie Clark? We have somebody?
76, 77, and 78? It looked like number 76 was closed and voted on, is that
Yep.
correct? Is she present
she
now
present
for
for
number
77?
76?
Jean Strohmeyer, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Before she does, Mr. Chairman, I think you should reopen
We
the
have to
public
reopen.
hearing.
So moved. Second.
Reopen 76.
All right, we have Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's reopened. Ms. Strohmeyer?
Hello, what item are we on, 76?
76.
Hi there. I'm just saying I'm not in favor of parking citations as a way to punish people for parking in the city that we already pay for. I just it's just doesn't seem right. Anyway, that's it. I'm not in favor of that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. Have a great day.
Anybody else, public comment? Move to close.
So moved.
Second one, Mr. Maniscalco.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
thank you, Martin Shelby. The title has already been read. I guess another roll call vote as a result of public comment is in order, just to put a period at the end of the statement.
Yeah.
All right.
I made a motion for 76 and read it.
Second it.
All right. Mr. Maniscalco made the motion. Mr. Miranda, seconded. Roll call vote. Yeah, we did close.
You know, if I may, in abundance of caution, I wish if he would read the ordinance.
That's fine.
That'll be
That's
fine.
just my opinion. I'm
No,
not
that'll
trying
be
to
fine.
intervene in any way. We'd like to close it. We voted ready to close.
Yeah.
Council's pleasure, certainly.
Read the ordinance.
Thank you very much. Just for clarification, item number 76, ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption, ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida relating to the authority to issue parking citations, making revisions to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Parking, amending Article 1, Administrative Provisions, Division 1, General Provisions, Administrative Authority Definitions, Section 15-4.5, authority to issue citations for parking tickets, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability,
Second.
providing effective date.
Second one, Mr. Miranda, roll call vote.
Viera.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, with regard to 77, where do we stand from the clerk's position? What was the
We
status?
have one person, Ms. Strohmeyer, again to speak.
And the hearing was the hearing closed, Madam Clerk, on 77?
No.
No.
It's still open?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody from staff on 77? Yeah.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, this is
Yes.
if I can, I appreciate it. This is the second reading based on council's, excuse me, direction to the administration to implement by ordinance the provision that was passed, I believe, in 2016 as a charter amendment. And just a reminder, council, to bring to your specific attention that there's a section of this ordinance that takes effect upon the mayor signing it, and what it says is, under council's request for additional internal audits, the city council shall make their request for any additional internal audits within 30 days of receipt of the proposed annual internal audit work plan from the internal auditor. So I just want to inform you, if you have not seen that, there was an email that was sent to City Council by the internal auditor, I believe the date was July 7th, that transmitted the work plan to City Council. It is not on the agenda, but you did get a copy of it. I just want to remind you, so then the 30 days begins running from the 7th of July, which would make it August 7th, and I believe there's only 2 regular meetings between now and then. So I just direct you to that. Unless council under new business, we can take up the issue of if council wants to put on the agenda for discussion before the 30 days is up. But I just want to bring that to your attention, that when the mayor signs this, this ordinance takes effect.
Got it.
I would say, gentlemen, are there any council members that are looking to have any audits done? I think that would be the question at the time. You know, this is just a way to kind of curtail the council for just asking for audits. That's the way I look at it personally. I understand they're busy over there, so I'm glad we were able to find that it had not been implemented. That's the key, that it was never implemented when it was voted on by the public. So I'm glad we were able to find that. So any questions this time in reference to this audit? Well, let's go with Mr. Dingfelder. He was first, and we'll come back to the chief of staff.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I saw the email from our auditor, Glover, and with the list of audits proposed, and it looks very comprehensive. The only response, and I sent an email back to Mr. Bennett and Ms. Glover, my only response back was, and it's not a demand by any means from council or this councilman, is on the list that I saw, I didn't see any TPD. And TPD represents a very significant part of our total budget. And so I was just a little bit surprised. And I asked that question about, just a little while ago to them. Obviously, didn't expect a response that quickly. But since Mr. Bennett's, Chief Bennett's here, if he has a response, that'd be great. Otherwise, we can bring it up at a later date.
I did call Ms. Glover about the EBO audit as well, so I did call her about that as well. Mr. Bennett?
Good morning, or close to good afternoon, Council. John Bennett, Chief of Staff, and good morning, public. I just wanted to respond in support to both Ms. Glover's efforts on the audit plan and in relationship to the second reading of the ordinance, that Ms. Glover and I and the senior staff did a kind of what Christine would refer to as an audit universe analysis by portfolio. And I went back for 5 years and I aggregated all of the audits, separated them by portfolio, sent them out to the executive leadership to look retrospectively before the audit plan got final. And to the Councilman Dingfelder's point, I believe, and I'm doing this from independent recollection without looking at that analysis that I sent out, and I'm happy to share a copy, that TPD by way of audits are in the T&I space, specifically related to records management and a few other supporting technological angles in TPD, but I will go back and make sure that those two are conjoined. And that's part of what we're trying to do, is to make sure that we look backwards, not just in the moment of the audit, but to look retrospectively as well as prospectively in our levels of service. So I appreciate council's support on the ordinance, the plan. And I also know, I remember a conversation on the last reading about looking at this, I think at either a workshop right after the beginning of the year, to see how well everything is moving. So we're happy to support that as well.
Gentlemen, any other questions? Mr. Carlson, you recognized.
Yeah, I had some concerns last time and before about potentially limiting city council's authority, but I asked the question last time, does this affect the city council's right by charter to quote unquote investigate? And the answer that Gina gave was no. So the way I look at audits is they're mostly process mapping, reviewing processes compared to best practices. They're not investigating, and the investigating power I want to make sure that we never limit. Thank you.
Is that clear, Mr. Shelby?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else for Chief of Staff?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right, sir. So we'll go, Mr. Vieira. Can you handle 77 for us, sir?
Did we take public comment?
That's right, Ms. Stelmeyer. That's right. We can't close Ms. Stelmeyer. I forgot about her.
Ms. Strohmeyer, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Trust City Council on this issue, and I withdraw any more comments. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great day.
Anybody else? Madam Clerk, anybody else? All right, move close.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Vieira, second by Mr. Maniscalco. Mr. Moran, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Vieira.
Yes, sir. I hereby move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, amending the City of Tampa Code Section 2-71 regarding internal audits, providing for the process by which City Council can request additional internal audits pursuant to City Charter Section 5.01 subsection C, providing for definitions, interpretations, and repealing conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
and Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Gentlemen, we have reached the 12 noon hour. We have a lot to still move forward with, and I don't think if I gave 15 minutes, we still would get through with them. So I would
Come back at 1:30?
come back at 1:30. I saw the chief is still on there, so we have a full packed afternoon, but we have to get through these.
Mr. Chairman, before you adjourn, I just want to have some clarity, Mr. Chairman. I know staff reports are normally at 1:30. Will staff reports be taken up after the public hearings are completed?
Finish the second readings.
We'll finish the second readings, get those out of the way. People have been waiting, so, I mean, we don't have too many staff that's lingering around, so I think we should be all right.
Okay, is there, with regard to Mr. Grandoff, did he make a request for the 10:30 hearing that wanted a continuance?
I don't have anything.
Okay, well, I guess I don't see.
Mr. Shelby?
Yes, Mr. Grandoff, I'm sorry.
Pardon me, I was delayed downstairs at that hour. Appreciate your indulgence, Mr. Chairman and council members. There's a matter set for hearing 10:30. I would plan to request a continuance on behalf of my client. The petitioner is also in agreement to a continuance.
Which item, John?
Which item, please?
Item 98.
98. All right.
That's a review hearing. Could we have a motion to open that, please?
So moved.
Open by Mr. Maniscalco, second by Mr. Citro. All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you. Mr. Grandoff?
Yes, I'm representing Mr. Thomas Buckingham, who's the property owner who was granted the variance. Mr. Fair has filed a request for the appeal hearing. My client is out of town today. Mr. Fair is out of town in August. We've both agreed to a September 16 date, if that is the council's prerogative.
Is Mr. Fair there?
He is not here, but he has authorized me to request the continuance. I told him we would not discuss the merits, and he could not make it this morning.
All right, clerk says
That
it is
date,
open.
I'm sorry, is the 16th of September?
It's open.
Yes, it is.
There is
It's
no
open.
meeting on the 16th of September. That is a meeting that was actually moved to the 30th because of Yom Kippur.
Whenever the council prefers. In fact, my client's.
I moved 98 to September 30th, just
Second.
at 10:30 in the morning.
All right. Mr. Dingfield has moved it. Mr. Miranda, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your courtesy, Mr. Chairman and members of council.
All right, we'll be back at 1:30. Sure.
Think about a full-grown woman, knows what it's all about. Got 100 ways to get to me. I can't figure out. Half the time she drives me crazy, but she makes it up in spring.